Lee Kuo has always felt that his life is quite rough, but he never thought that he could be so mysterious to this extent. Half a month ago, a lawyer found her and told her that she was the illegitimate daughter of the patriarch of the Mo family in Beijing, and that she had all the DNA test evidence, so he said he would take her to listen to the will. Lee Kuo immediately called the security guard and the police uncle. She didn't expect that the lawyer was a real lawyer, and the will was also a real will, but her irresponsible father was already dead, which made her even more emotional. There is no way to express. Lee Kuo is like a golden phoenix flying out of the ravines in all the local dramas on TV. He studied hard all the way from a poor mountain village to Beijing University. He even skipped 2 grades in advance and graduated early. Now he is unemployed. Like all mountain village families, there is a patriarchal grandpa and grandma. My mother died very early, my stepfather likes to drink and beat others, and my younger brother got poor grades and got into a good high school by paying loan fees. Although Lee Kuo was also neglected in this family, even when scolded and reprimanded by the unclean to do housework, she thought numbly, who called them her relatives. If her own mother doesn't care, what can she do? Now I know why, after my mother died, why my aunt would always call her the daughter of a vixen and a whore. It turned out to be like this. Lee Kuo pursed her lips and looked at the 3 handsome men in front of her. They looked at each other warily, guarding against each other like enemies, for fear of losing money. Master Mo said that all the fields and hills beside the old house belonged to Ms. Lee Kuo. As for the family's real estate, stocks, and cash, all of them will be shared equally among the sons. Lawyer Zhang, wearing glasses, took out his will and read it out. In a circle. Are there any questions? Attorney Zhang asked. Mo Hongfeng directly overturned the table, with blue veins popping out of anger, and said angrily, I am father's biological child, these people are all illegitimate children, why should they share property with me? Lawyer Zhang understands Mo Hongfeng's anger very well. After all, this is not a few million, but a property worth hundreds of millions. If the only share becomes owned at herd, no one can bear it. Hey, this will has been notarized when Lord Mo was alive, and it has legal effect. Lawyer Zhang said euphemistically, meaning that whether you like it or not, the inheritance still has to be divided. What's wrong with us being illegitimate children? We are also father's children, so why don't you give us money? The young and vigorous Mo Hungui just got up with his half-brother. Brother, let's respect Dad's last wish. Although we haven't met, we both bleed the same blood, don't we? Mo Hongzhan, who was wearing thin-rimmed glasses, said softly. It's a pity that these words only made Mo Hong furious and his blood surged. The second-generation ancestor of him has no skills, but he will never be soft-hearted in safeguarding his legitimate inheritance. In an instant, Mo Hongfeng raised his fist and started fighting with the 2 half-brothers. The hall was in a mess, you pulled my clothes, and I pulled your hair. Lee Kuo wrinkled her nose impatiently. Like the 3 brothers of the Mo family, she also has beautiful peach blossom eyes, her snow-white skin is more radiant under the long skirt, her small and delicate face has 3-dimensional features, and she looks happy Yi Chen, no matter laughing or crying is a style. But Lee Kuo didn't have the self-consciousness of a little beauty at all. In fact, she was already regretting being coaxed by Lawyer Zhang. So what if the Mo family is rich? Why is she getting involved? Ridiculous bunch of people. Lawyer Zhang was still sitting where he was, and waited for the 3 brothers to talk about the additional clauses. When they finished talking, Lee Kuo tore off the elegant turban on his head and threw it on the table. The brothers who moved down opened their lips and said, sorry, I borrowed it. Mo Hongfeng subconsciously seemed to see his dead father talking, and in a trance, he really got out of the way. Lee Kuo walked directly from his side to the door without looking back, which fully demonstrated his disdain for them. Wait! Ms. Lee! This will! Lawyer Zhang shouted loudly, and quickly chased after him, but was blocked by Li Qiaoqiuo's slender hands. "No need, share it among yourselves. I don't need it. I just came here to hear what my biological father had to say. Since this is what you guys have to keep, I don't need it," Li Qiaoqiuo said lightly. Although there was no clear reference, Mo Hongfeng still exploded like a ignited firecracker, and said meanly, "Oh, I didn't know that, sister, you are so high-minded, don't you look down on that? I don't know much, country girl, that's a place that has been passed down for generations, and you won't be able to afford it in your next life." "Oh, Ziwei." Li Qiaoqiuo let out an emotionless "oh," and opened his mouth to ask, "Then why don't we change?" These words made Mo Hongfeng's face almost smoke with anger. Ziwei said it nicely, but it was actually a dilapidated country place. In addition to the good air, there is also a long distance from the ancestral temple. It can't be compared with Mo's family business at all. Whoever changes it is a fool. Who knows what the ancestors were doing with this tasteless rib? Li Qiaoqiuo didn't care what these people were thinking, just turned the doorknob and walked out, frowning, and walked quickly towards the elevator. Who knew that the skirt was in the way? It was because of the carpet, which almost caused her to trip over the elevator mouth. Crooked body. A pair of big hands supported Li Qiaoqiuo's shoulders when she was about to fall, and a warm voice sounded, "Be careful." "Thank you." Li Qiaoqiuo hurriedly stood up, looked up at the people in the elevator, and was stunned. Nai Yunqing raised one eyebrow and glanced at Li Qiaoqiuo, pointing to the empty space in the elevator, and asked, "Do you want to come in?" Li Qiaoqiuo shook his head in a daze, but it was like 1,000 layers of waves rolled up in his heart. "Ah, it's him." Before Li Qiaoqiuo came back to his senses, the elevator went down, and Li Qiaoqiuo came back to his senses after a while, covering his heart in shock, feeling that he was too unlucky today, and even forgot to say a few more words to the male god. Maybe Nai Yunqing doesn't know her, but almost all the students in Peking University know this honorary senior. She is full of honors, CEO of the world's top 500 companies, and her personal assets exceed 100 million yuan. Her angel venture capital is the gospel of all researchers. Li Qiaoqiuo had heard his speeches before, and naturally became his fangirl, not to mention chasing him or what to do, just reading the financial reports would make her happy. Unfortunately, all of this was messed up by herself just now. Just as Li Qiaoqiuo was about to wait for the elevator to come up in desperation, there was a ding in her head, and she looked around suspiciously, thinking that some electrical appliance was in use, when she heard a mechanical sound in her head. The farming system has been activated. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the farming system. It takes hard work day and night to achieve the title of farming master. Wait. Li Qiaoqiuo is a new human being of the 21st century who has received education in the new era, so he is no stranger to this system. But, who said I'm going to farm? I didn't agree at all, okay. Li Qiaoqiuo was so angry that he almost rolled up his sleeves and got into a fight with this inexplicable system. Who knows if this system is broken or what? After a bunch of congratulatory words, I started to talk about usage matters, so I didn't refuse this option. Finally, the farming system said, a gift bag and a lottery will be sent to the upgrade if the conditions are met. The system mall must reach level 10 to start, and the host who has reached the farming master level can close the system. If you resist using the resistance task, you will be in bad luck until continue with the task. Is Li Qiaoqiuo such an easily subdued person? If she was, she wouldn't just take her clothes and move to the school when her stepfather wanted to plot against her, and she would be completely separated from that family from then on, and go to university at her own expense through work-study programs. She pursed her lips and looked at the elevator, just in case she still took the safe passage. She didn't believe that this system could really bring her bad luck, but maybe these electronic connections would be affected. Safety first. When she was walking through the safe passage, the phone in her bag kept ringing. Even with her eyes closed, she knew that Lawyer Zhang must have called her, so she let the bell ring and disappear, and then disappeared again. When she walked out of the building safely, Li Qiaoqiao was still thinking that the system was too good at bragging. Why didn't she come out alive and well? Just when Li Qiaoqiao was relaxing, the phone rang again. She frowned and took it out and decided to turn it off immediately. A car out of control ran through a red light and rushed straight towards her. There were screams and brakes almost at the same time, but it took only 2 seconds for Li Qiaoqiao to raise his head and see the car zooming in front of his eyes, and then rolled to the side and saw the car smash the glass door of the building. The driver was lying on his stomach with blood all over his face, not knowing what happened. Li Qiaoqiao was also helped up by passers-by. Fortunately, except for her hands and knees being scratched by the ground, she was fine. Hey, the little girl is really lucky, don't be afraid, don't be afraid, if you survive a catastrophe, there will be future blessings. Oh my god, what a coincidence, it's a real-life version of death. That's right, I guess I'll never meet him once in my life. This person is too unlucky, but also very lucky. He's only 1 meter away. Li Qiaoqiao looked pale, and seemed to understand what the system meant by bad luck, but it was if you don't farm, you will die. Accept the mission. Li Qiaoqiao simply chose the job among the options of living or dying, and the voice in his head was decisive. The farming system has been successfully opened, and the novice gift package has been distributed. As a qualified farming master, the first step is to own your own land. Land? As a fresh graduate, Li Qiaoqiao hasn't found a suitable job yet and doesn't have much savings, let alone land. But no matter how she called the farming system in her mind, there was no redundant introduction, and she guessed and tried the system page. After Li Qiaoqiao went to the small clinic to apply the potion and drove back, he had time to sit on the sofa in the rental house and start studying the various detailed rules and regulations on the page in front of him. First of all, the size of this land is regulated, and I don't know how the system judges it. The land area starts from 10 acres. Even if Li Qiaoqiao is willing to contract the land in the countryside, 10 acres of land will cost less than tens of thousands of dollars in 30 years. Where did she get the money? What's more, what the system didn't explain was that when accepting the task, a countdown had already appeared on the top of the form, and if there was no action within 3 days, he would be punished. What kind of punishment did Li Qiaoqiao not want to try? The only way was Li Qiaoqiao looked down at the phone that rang again, sighed and answered it. I agree, when will I go through the formalities? Isn't it just farming to be a farming master? She can do it. Lawyer Zhang seemed to be afraid that Li Qiaoqiao would disagree, so he took her to go through the formalities, gave her a stack of documents and an address, and kindly helped her book a plane ticket and sent her away from Beijing. Li Qiaoqiao, who was drowsy on the plane, seemed to hear a ding sound in his mind. Congratulations to the host for reaching the first level achievement. Before falling asleep, Li Qiaoqiao's logic was online, and she murmured to herself, isn't it just level 1? She has exceeded the agreed 10 acres and gained a few more mountains. Why didn't she rush to the full level all of a sudden and let her go? After getting off the plane, Li Qiaoqiao stood at the airport in City S, her eyebrows twitching. Of course, she was not shocked by the prosperity of City S, but was surprised by the barren and empty scenery. She thought that the land of the Mo family belonged to them anyway. Ziwei, not to mention picking a place with beautiful mountains and clear waters, it can't be here, right? Fortunately, Li Qiaoqiao has a preliminary understanding of this kind of field system, and even thinking about it, she knows that it will not make her feel better, so it is better to take a step and see a step. Modern people travel the world with a mobile phone. What is the difference between urban and rural areas with network cables? Leaving the urban area of City S, Li Qiaoqiao probably wouldn't be able to recognize the way even if she had a map. Looking at the Daowen village on the address, she thought to herself, she should find a car and take a ride there, otherwise she might have to sleep outside at night if she gets lost. Perhaps the name of Daowin village was too famous. Li Qiaoqiao reported the name and the driver said he knew it, but because there were few people going there, it would be more expensive to go there. The shy Li Qiaoqiao asked in silence for a while, "How much?" The driver showed his big yellow teeth, smiled and compared his fingers, and said, "Not much, 200. You might as well grab it." Li Qiaoqiao gritted his teeth and wanted to turn around and leave, but thinking about the unfamiliarity of the place, he still held back his anger and bargained, "Up to 100, if not, I will leave." Who knew that the driver responded immediately, "Yes." Li Qiaoqiao, "I feel a little regretful, what should I do?" The driver really knew the way, but it was not as far as Li Qiaoqiao thought. It took about half an hour to reach a village not far from S city. Because it was a little far from the provincial road, the road was dirt road, so it was inevitable that there would be some bumps and shocks. Li Qiaoqiao's face turned pale. If there is anything wrong with being born in the village, the problem of getting dizzy when riding a car can't be fixed, and it is also a point that relatives complain about hypocrisy. The driver sent Li Qiaoqiao to the gate of Daowin village, stepped on the gas pedal and left, leaving Li Qiaoqiao, who was carrying a suitcase and carrying a backpack, standing where he was. "I don't know where that piece of land is, but it may be because it is far away from the city. The air is fresh, surrounded by mountains, and emerald green is almost full of sight. This time period is the busy season of farming, and there is almost no one on the road in Daowin village. Occasionally, there are elderly people working in front of the house." Because of the dialect, it took Li Qiaoqiao a long time to get the gestures. Where the village committee is located. Li Qiaoqiao walked along the low houses and saw a small flat two-story building. He went in and inquired. When he learned that Li Qiaoqiao was going to the hill and field under his name, Jin Liangmin still looked at it for a long time. "Girl, are you from the Mo family?" Li Qiaoqiao just put the various documents in his hands up for him to see, which clearly stated the relationship between father and daughter. Li Qiaoqiao still has a rural household registration, so this is much easier to handle. In fact, Jin Liangmin was just asking casually, and didn't mean to question it. The day before yesterday, when lawyer Zhang accepted the will, he had already talked to him on the phone. After explaining a few words, he was still very kind to this little girl. "I still have things to do here. I'll ask someone to take you to see it later. The place is a bit big. Do you want to rest for a while before going?" Jin Liangmin suggested to Li Qiaoqiao, who looked pale. Jin Liangmin's office is not big, but it has all internal organs, except for a few glass bookshelves with documents, a small sofa and coffee table. Li Qiaoqiao was not polite either. After tossing around for a long time, his stomach was empty and his mind was groggy, he just wanted to find his destination quickly. "Thank you, Secretary Jin." Li Qiaoqiao glanced at the nameplate on the table and said politely. Jin Liangmin burst out laughing, dealing with the villagers all day long, no one really called her that in such a serious way. "Just call me Uncle Jin, there are not so many rules. You sit down and drink some water, and I will find someone for you." Jin Liangmin waved his hand grandly, and directly picked up the landline on the table to make a call. After a few words, I hung up the phone. "Don't worry, I'm looking for a safe person for you, who knows everything about the village, just ask him if you have anything." Jin Liangmin, especially a veteran coder, said leisurely while holding an enamel cup and sipping strong tea. Li Qiaoqiao waited for a while, then saw the big man rushing in, and said in a loud voice, "Jin Liangmin, what's the matter? The work in the field still needs to be done. After 2 days of rain, the wheat in the field will be gone. To suffer." Jin Liangmin chuckled, don't worry, it won't take long. Mo Lao-san, this little girl belongs to the Mo family. Take her to see the mountain forest and get to know the way. From now on, we are all fellow villagers, so we shouldn't know each other. Someone. Mo was about 40 years old in 3 years, with a dark complexion, thick arms, simple clothes, and some mud stuck to his trouser legs. All in all, he was a serious peasant image. Along the way, Mo Lao-san was extremely curious, and kept asking questions in Mandarin with a strong accent. Girl, are you here to take care of those lands? It's been deserted for a long time, and you don't let them plant them. Now the grass has grown to the knees. Are you alone? You have to hire some people to tidy up the land. The forest is the same. There are too many rocks, and the wild fruits are very sour. If you want to grow something, I don't think so. Before Li Qiaoqiao saw the land, he listened to Mo Lao-san's knowledge all the way, in short that land is not suitable for farming. Li Qiaoqiao didn't plan to farm the land at all. If it wasn't for the system, why couldn't she make ends meet? Now that her wealth and life depended on the system, she had to plant it. That didn't stop her from resisting passively. Li Qiaoqiao stood on the dense grass with a dazed face, and Mo Lao-san stood in front and waved to her, "Come here, your place is still in front, it's relatively big here, and it's a little far from the village, so no one usually comes here. You little girl shut the door at night." In fact, if this place is not used for farming, Li Qiaoqiao might even praise it for its lush grass and lush trees, making it a good place for outings. But now, in Li Qiaoqiao's eyes, this place has been equated with money. Cleaning up the grass requires money, and cleaning up the weeds in the mountains also requires money. Money, she doesn't have it. Fortunately, the Mo family is not so stingy. At least the house left for Li Qiaoqiao is a small villa with a second floor and a complete electrical network around it. It is estimated that it has not been owned for a long time, and it looks a bit gloomy. Li Qiaoqiao thought of those Hong Kong and Taiwan movies, barren mountains, single-family villas. She shook her body and quickly followed Mo Lao-san, leaving these wild thoughts behind. Mo Lao-san opened the door for her with the key, but did not go up, and said at the door, "There is still work in the field, so I won't go in. I saw that lawyer Zhang came here a few days ago, there should be some rice noodles, I'll ask my baby to bring you some food in a while, and let's top it off for today." Li Qiaoqiao is not a person who doesn't know how to be grateful. If someone is willing to give you something, it is a kindness, and if you don't give it, it is also a duty. No one owes you. "Thank you Uncle Mo, is there a place to sell vegetables in the village?" Li Qiaoqiao asked. Mo Lao-san was surprised and said, "Who buys vegetables? They grow them by themselves." "Oh, I forgot, you don't grow them. How about it? If you lack any vegetables, go to our house to get them. You don't need to buy it. Except in the town, there are no vegetable sellers around here, so they can't be sold." Li Qiaoqiao was also depressed, and he and Mo Lao-san still asked where the town was, and Mo Lao-san told her in detail, and made it clear where his home was before leaving here. Li Qiaoqiao pushed the luggage into the house and turned it up and down. There are all the furniture and electrical appliances in the house, all of which are completely inconsistent with the style of the surrounding mountain villages, and I don't know when it was arranged. The sheets and quilts were neatly stacked in the cabinet, and she took some time to throw them in the washing machine to dry, and took advantage of the sun to dry them on the balcony on the third floor. After finishing these tasks, Mo Lao-san's daughter came to deliver food. The little girl's wheat-colored face was a little timid, and she looked about 10 years old. She was as tall as Li Qiaoqiao's shoulders, and she was 1.5 meters tall. "Sister, Dad asked me to deliver the food. I'll come back tomorrow. What kind of food do you want? I have a lot at home." The little girl shyly showed a smile, looking at the beautiful young lady in front of her. She wanted to get close. Seeing that the little girl was in a good mood, Li Qiaoqiao invited her to come in and have a meal together, just as she wanted to make some noodles. The little girl waved her hand and dared not go in. The room was too bright. Although I usually saw it from a distance, I didn't dare to go in. This is where people from the city live, so it's not good to go in and get dirty. Up. Li Qiaoqiao also wanted to lobby. After all, she was quite lonely by herself, so she frowned slightly when she heard the sound of ding. She still smiled and said goodbye to the little girl, and made an appointment to go around the village together tomorrow. Close the door and open the properties panel, only to see that several tasks have been refreshed to be completed. Clean up the fields, clear the forest, give a novice gift bag, and a bag of 500 grams first-level reward fertilizer. The author has something to say, there is another update tonight. Li Qiaoqiao muttered, this place is so big, it will probably take several days just to clean up the small area in front, and there is no reward yet. While cooking, Li Qiaoqiao studied this simple attribute panel. Apart from the known task release bar, there were also various buttons, most of which were dark. Click on the character attribute, and she could clearly see her specific data. Host, Li Qiaoqiao age, 21 years old, height, 166 centimeters, available for farming, 0/100 mu plantable forest land, 0/100 mu level, farming rookie level 2 followers, 5 reputation points, 25. Li Qiaoqiao was a little puzzled, you still have fans in a farming system? What is reputation value? It took her a long time to find an explanation in the corner. In short, farming masters are divided into 4 levels: rookie, experienced, expert, and master. Every level from level 1 to level 10, the data is also doubled. When it comes to farming masters, there are hard conditions, such as land must have 1,000 acres, fans must have millions, and reputation points must also have millions. Li Qiaoqiao wants to die, really, she has millions of fans, and she is not an internet celebrity, how could she have it? It would be faster to kill her. Just when she felt pessimistic that she couldn't do it, the chair she was sitting on suddenly collapsed, causing her to fall to the ground, covered in dust, and the unlucky boy Li Qiaoqiao, who hit her waist, was dizzy with pain. Dazzled. That's all right, I'll grow. Li Qiaoqiao immediately changed his appearance, and said righteously, farming is such a good thing, how could I not like it? Haha. Fortunately, the system didn't really want to kill Li Qiaoqiao, at least her novice gift bag still contained a lot of good things, such as rookie gloves, rookie hoe, and rookie farm clothes. There are also a lot of seeds, insecticide solution, and the nutrient solution irrigated is multiplied by 3. The task of clearing the fields and forests is 1 month, and Li Qiaoqiao has no time to waste. She took out all the money when she came to Daowen village this time, and went directly to Mo Laosan the next day to find some people to help her clean up the land. Clear out. Mo Laosan said with some embarrassment, recently, the farming season is busy. I guess no one is free, but my mother is free. Let her find some for you, and then go to the next village to borrow some machines for land preparation. It will be faster. Li Qiaoqiao nodded hastily, with a smile on his lips, his dimples were slightly sweet, and his eyes brightened. Thank you, Uncle Mo. Hey! It's okay. It's a big deal. You're welcome. Mo Laosan felt that this girl is really obedient. It's really hard for one person to manage such a big place. You need to find some reliable helpers to help, and don't let people bully you. Up. Mo's third daughter-in-law is a bold northern daughter-in-law, with a slightly fat body and a tall stature. Standing next to Li Qiaoqiao makes Li Qiaoqiao's petite figure even more apparent. Sun Xiaoxiu took Li Qiaoqiao directly to make appointments with a few acquaintances in Daowen village, and then took Li Qiaoqiao to the neighboring Shanchuan village to borrow a machine. Although the name of Daowen village is particularly beautiful, the per capita income of this village is generally struggling on the line of food and clothing. Most young people have gone out to work, and those who stay in the village are either old people or children. Middle-aged people like Mo Lao-san are relatively poor. Few. But Shanchuan village, which is separated by a village, is different, because there is a well-known family, and the infrastructure of the whole village is well established. Everyone in Daowen village is jealous. The cement floor, red brick houses, and tap water are used throughout the village. The pipelines are harvested by machines during busy farming seasons, which is much easier than manually working on scattered land. In other words, the hundreds of acres of land that Li Qiaoqiao inherited became one piece, otherwise the machines would not be able to go to the fields. Li Qiaoqiao also met the villagers of Shanchuan village. The men all looked rich, which was in stark contrast to the villagers of Daowen village. Do you want to borrow it? One will cost 100 a day, and two will cost 200. You prepare the oil yourself. If the machine is broken, you have to pay for it in full. People in the village don't pay much attention to deposits. What does it matter to us? Pan said. Rong said with a smile. Sun Xiaoxia's smile didn't change, her eyes were slightly cold. Success, 2 sets will cost 201 day. Seeing that Sun Xiaoxia wanted to pay, Li Qiaoqiao took out her wallet and took out 2 $100 bills and handed them to her. Sun Xiaoxiu nodded and reached out to Pan Rong. Pan Rong had noticed Li Qiaoqiao a long time ago. He didn't look like someone from Daowen village. A man of his age, who had money and leisure, naturally had a lot of fun. His wife was old and didn't have any charm at all. Like this little girl, with fair complexion and handsome appearance, it makes people feel really hot. Sister Sun, this is your relative. The little girl is quite pretty. Pan Rong looked at Li Qiaoqiao with sticky eyes without any trace, causing Li Qiaoqiao to look back in disgust. Naturally, Sun Xiaoxiu had also heard some gossip about Pan Rong. She straightened her face, stuffed the money into his arms, and said directly, "We still have things to do, so I won't talk to you. The machine will find someone to drive away in a while." On the way, Sun Xiaoxiu told Li Qiaoqiao, Pan Rong is not a good character. If it weren't for the fact that he has a machine at home, no one would pay attention to him. Be vigilant at home and pay attention to safety. I think you still have a dog at home. If he comes to trouble you, you will let the dog go. When Li Qiaoqiao heard the words, his eyes were like crescent moons, and he felt that Mo Lao-san's family were all kind-hearted people. Hundreds of acres of land were harvested with machines, and then turned to break up the soil. A few people tossed back and forth for a whole afternoon before doing a little of it. Li Qiaoqiao, as a landowner who wants to do it himself in the future, naturally has to learn to operate the machine. Who knows that this machine looks easy, but it is difficult to find it after going up. In the weather of August, there is no air conditioner sitting inside, people are sweating all over in the heat, and the monotonous movements also consume patience. Li Qiaoqiao looked at Sun Xiaoxiu and the others with admiration after driving back and forth, and his eyes were full of amazement. Sun Xiaoxiu and the others all brought their own water bottles, and when they were drinking water, they laughed when they heard Li Qiaoqiao's rainbow fart. Sun Xiaoxiu smiled and said, "What is this? Your generation doesn't do much farming anymore. Now that you have machines, it's much easier than doing it yourself. My baby's father is still working in the field under the sun. It's so comfortable to sit, we can't wait to do it every day." Li Qiaoqiao raised his eyebrows and smiled after hearing this. Yes, there are not many farmers in Ljia village, and because of the atmosphere, most of them are doing business. Even if she stays in her hometown, she just fiddles with a piece of private land at the door, and those who grow some onions, garlic and vegetables do not take farming as a career, which is different from the situation in Daowen village, so these sighs she made are actually ignorant. Fortunately, Sun Xiaoxiu and the others were just making fun of her, they didn't mean to laugh at her, they just wondered why she would choose to come to Daowen village to really farm the land. After all, even if you inherit this piece of mountain forest land, you can also contract it to others, and it is too hard to grow it yourself. Li Qiaoqiao faltered and fumbled, could it be that a farming system forced me to farm? Hey, life is not easy, Qiaoqiao sighed. It took 3 days to sort out all the fields, and the 600 yuan was just thrown away, and Sun Xiaoxiu and others who came to help, Li Qiaoqiao still paid the money on a daily basis. Sun Xiaoxiu didn't want to pick it up at first, but Li Qiaoqiao said with a stern face, "And son, brother, I will settle the account. I still have a lot of work here, and I still need help. You don't charge money all day, how can I be embarrassed? 100 per person one day, don't be polite to me." It made sense for Sun Xiaoxiu to think about it. Li Qiaoqiao's house formed a large area of land and forests, and it would take a month to reclaim all the wasteland. The few of them have a lot of family affairs, if they come to help every day, the mother-in-law will talk about it, and thinking about Li Qiaoqiao's wealth, she hesitates to accept it, and will work harder in the future. In the afternoon of the third day, after all the fields had been prepared, Li Qiaoqiao's farming system reminded her that she had reached level 4, that the task points were in place, her prestige value increased by 3, and her followers +1. Li Qiaoqiao pondered for a while. The only people she has been in contact with these days are Sun Xiaoxiu and others. It seems that this reputation value should be related to whether others recognize her, just like playing a game. When you become famous, the reputation value will naturally increase. Rise up! After learning how to earn reputation points, Li Qiaoqiao happily took a day off for himself. There is never enough work to do, so it's better to plan the next thing. After the land has been prepared, it is not time to sow. According to Sun Xiaoxiu, the land will have to be turned over again in a few days, and pesticides will also be applied to prevent grass from growing. As for the forest, Sun Xiaoxiu didn't know anything about it, because Daowen village had a lot of fields and few mountains and forests. How few were there? Half of the only mountains belonged to Li Qiaoqiao. No one knows how to grow fruit, so everyone is limited to listening to experienced people how to do it. Mo Lao-san knew that Li Qiaoqiao was going to remediate the forest, and was worried that there were too many trees to grow, so he invited people to his house for dinner, and said directly at the dinner table, "Xiaoxiu said you want to plant fruit trees? The fruit trees on the top of the mountain near us don't taste good, and the fruits are very sour. Do you really want to plant them?" Mo Lao-san looked puzzled. Grandma Mo glared at him directly, and said, "What are you doing? The little girl wants to grow things well, and you are quite lenient. Have you finished the work in your field?" Sun Xiaoxiu hurriedly smoothed things over and said, "Mom, her father didn't mean that, but just wanted to ask Qiaoqiao what he planned to do." Sitting next to Mo Xiao, Li Qiaoqiao was holding a chicken leg for her when she heard their arguing, put down her chopsticks and smiled and replied, "That's my plan, the trees on the mountain need to be cleared, no matter what, whether it is planting fruit trees or doing anything, it is easy to plan. I have heard from Aunt Sun that the saplings are going to the farmer's market in the town, and I will buy the ones that are suitable, but I am afraid that this tree will not be cleaned up so quickly." Seeing Li Qiaoqiao's frowning and pitiful look, Boss Mo slapped down the table with his hands, causing Grandma Mo and Sun Xiaoxiu to stare, and said with a smile, "Didn't I come up with a good idea? This tree, Qiaoqiao doesn't want it, there are many people in our village who want it." Seeing that they didn't understand, Mo Lao-san felt that he was too smart and it was a trouble, but no one understood, so he broke it down and explained to them. Li Qiaoqiao's thinking is limited, and he always thinks about spending money to find someone to work and cut down trees. Mo Lao-san pointed out that this forest used to be owned by others, and the big guys would pick up branches at most, and the trees would not dare hacked. Now that Li Qiaoqiao is the owner of these mountains, as long as he helps to cut down the trees will belong to whoever they are. Isn't this tempting enough? I'm afraid that as soon as the news is released, people from several nearby villages will come over like crazy to help cut down the trees. It won't take a month for you to cut down the forest. Li Qiaoqiu was shocked. It turned out that there was such a trick to save money, and he was taught. Although the plan has been made, Mo Lao-san still needs to find someone to release the news, and Li Qiaoqiu still needs time to look after the fruit saplings, and first plan to see what to plant on such a large land. If it is wheat, it can be sown in early October, and Li Qiaoqiu also needs to buy wheat seeds. For 100 mu of land 10 caddies of wheat seeds per mu, and 1000 caddies, even if Mo Lao-san and the others wanted to sell it to Li Qiaoqiu, they didn't have so much in stock, so they had to buy it. Speaking of this, Li Qiaoqiu has some other ideas. The origin is her own farming system. Now there are machines for farming and so on, and people can be hired, but with the development and use of the land, the money is more and more expensive. Phew! After years of frugality and work-study programs, I saved 10,000 yuan. After arriving in Daowen village, I have already gone to Xiaoyuan. The rest of the money will be spent on wheat seeds, mountain cleaning, and fruit tree seedlings. I have no money and can't leave here. What should I do? Li Qiaoqiu directly thought of live broadcasting. Modern people live in a rapidly developing society. They go home and rest every day except for work. Almost all their spare time is spent watching Douyin, Weibo, and live broadcasts to relax. Although no one seems to watch pure farming, there are always some people who like to watch it. Thinking about the millions of fans required by the system, Li Qiaoqiu feels that live broadcasting farming every day is a good choice. Reach 1 million, and then she can uninstall this broken system. As if to retaliate against Li Qiaoqiu's slander, there were many accidents on the way to the town. First, the car was suspected to be old and broke down and couldn't start, or the tire was blown halfway through, so I had to get out of the car and walk. When Li Qiaoqiu walked to the town under the sun, his face was ashen and sweaty, and no matter how exquisite his appearance was, he became like a village girl. It was under such circumstances that Li Qiaoqiu saw Nai Yunqing again. Compared with the last time when he was dressed in a suit with a golden proportion figure, now he is in good shape, and his slightly bulging chest muscles make casual shirts look like haute couture. Then when you stand, you can find the movements of people passing by who keep turning their heads. Nai Yunqing helped his grandfather get out of the car and went to a nearby store for a rest. Nai Shide was still talking about the past to his grandson. This place has changed too much. I haven't been back for so many years. I almost lost my way and got old. Nai Shide said with emotion. Nai Yunqing smiled slightly and said, "Then do you think this place is getting better and better?" Nai Shide nodded, sat on the stool, and looked at the shops and pedestrians outside the door from time to time. He happened to meet the dark and bright eyes of a young girl, and couldn't help but wink at her. Unexpectedly, the little girl scratched her face and ran away with her braids twitching. Nai Shide couldn't help but said, "Yunqing, the people here are still so simple." Nai Yunqing? Nai Yunqing followed his grandfather's gaze and looked forward. Except for the crowded and messy crowd, there was nothing special. Then he ordered some special snacks with the store. After all, the main purpose of coming back this time is to take his grandfather to recuperate. To take the old man where he wanted to go, so Nai Yunqing took his grandfather back to the village to live for a while, and the company's affairs were all handled by the vice president. After Li Qiaoqiu ran away, she seemed to be able to recall the moment of nervousness when she saw Nai Yunqing about to look up, and ran away without any hope. "I want to beat my chest and stamp my feet." However, how did Nai Yunqing come here? Li Qiaoqiu ran too fast just now, didn't know where he was going, just followed the crowd, unexpectedly found the right way by mistake, and arrived at the gate of the farmers' market. Different from the farmers' markets in the city, the farmers' markets in the town are full of stalls selling homegrown products, including vegetables, pigeons, chickens, and ducks, snacks, and some Chinese herbal medicines. I also saw people selling rat poison. Li Qiaoqiu. After looking around, I couldn't find anyone selling fruit saplings. After Li Qiaoqiao asked someone, I realized that although this is a farmer's market, they don't sell saplings. I have to go to a place that specializes in wholesale fruit saplings. It's not far from the farmer's market. It's far, about 10 minutes walk. It was only when Li Qiaoqiao arrived at the wholesale market that he saw the saplings. They were placed on the ground row by row, each with the year and the name of the sapling marked on it. Li Qiaoqiao just turned around a little, and found that almost all the saplings of apple trees and persimmon trees are here, which are completely different from the orange and peach trees she imagined. Little girl, do you want to buy saplings? I have a 1-year apple sapling here. It can bear fruit after 2 years of planting and a bumper harvest in 3 years. You can buy it. Old man Zhang enthusiastically introduced the saplings on the tractor next to him. Li Qiaoqiao walked around here, and he could tell that this was a buyer who was going to buy, and it looked different from those wandering around. Are you all apple saplings here? How do you sell them? Li Qiaoqiao asked after looking at the lush saplings behind old man Zhang. In addition to apple trees, there are grape trees, lychee trees, orange trees, peach trees, and persimmon trees, but all I brought here are apple trees. The price is 30 yuan per tree. If you have a large quantity, I will pay you back. It can be considered cheaper. You can ask, I guarantee the lowest price here, a fair price. Old man Zhang bid while looking at Li Qiaoqiao's expression. Li Qiaoqiao thought about her savings of less than 9,000, and when she looked at these fruit tree saplings, she could almost see the price marked on them. She asked in a somewhat difficult voice, if you want more, like a few hundred, how much cheaper can it be? Old man Zhang couldn't see Li Qiaoqiao's pale and heartbroken expression at this time, and said happily, the minimum is 20, ours is red Fuji, this year's new variety, guaranteed to be sweet, I can give you some more if you buy more. You see, what else do you want besides apple trees? There are still at home, if you want, I will go back and pull them for you. Li Qiaoqiao waved his hands. For the current plan, he still needs to start a business to make money. Farming is the basic task of the system, but even if the products in the field are grown and sold, it will take some time. Now she doesn't even have to think about where to buy food, because she can't even afford to eat. I don't know if her resentment is too deep, but the farming system responded in a timely manner and issued the following tasks directly. Are you still worried that the vegetables and fruits you grow can't be sold? The farming system will serve you wholeheartedly. The novice gift package seeds allow you to instantly have mature fruit trees that grow overnight. The nutrition meets the needs of the human body, promotes metabolism, and does not hurt your waist. The legs don't hurt. Please follow the instructions and plant the tree in the designated area to increase proficiency by 10 and level by 1. Li Qiaoqiao. Li Qiaoqiao took a deep breath, turned his head ruthlessly, and looked at the old man Zhang with a smile and said, Master, do you have any peach trees for those fruit tree seedlings you just mentioned? I want to buy 100 trees, and the price will be discounted. Can you give me some more apple saplings? If I can plant them, I plan to buy some more. After all, there are 2 mountains, who knows if the farming system will let her plant all the places that can be planted, just in case, let's talk about it first. Old man Zhang was a little disappointed, but 100 plants is not a small business, so he cheered up and said, yes, yes, where do you want to send it? I can deliver it to your door today. Li Qiaoqiao thought for a while, there is a piece of treeless area in the back of the mountain, and it is close to the yard. It can be planted at the foot of the mountain all the way up, and it will be beautiful when the peach blossoms are in full bloom. Immediately, the place where the old man Zhang Yuehao received the goods was at the entrance of Daowen village. If there was no problem, the bill would be settled on the spot. If there was a problem later, he would be responsible for replacing the saplings for him. The old man Zhang patted his chest and said directly, no problem, you can inquire about the 10 miles and 8 villages. I am not that kind of person. I will definitely pick out the saplings for you and deliver them to you in the afternoon. Li Qiaoqiao nodded lightly, and after saying goodbye to old man Zhang, she remembered that she hadn't bought the wheat seeds in the field yet. Li Qiaoqiao thought about getting rid of the 2,000 and 7,000 money, and suddenly felt a headache. The process of buying wheat seeds went relatively smoothly. She bought 1,000 caddies of wheat seeds for 3 yuan a caddy, and then got rid of 3 yuan at once. Thousands. Clutching the bills of less than 4,000, he thought of buying live broadcast equipment. Li Qiaoqiao really needs to buy oxygen tanks for oxygen inhalation. After Li Qiaoqiao bought a high-resolution mobile phone and a tripod from the city, the camera came back. There was no way, even if she wanted to bring the whole set of equipment back, the money would not allow it. In fact, the mobile phone cost her more than 3,000, others are not expensive. All in all, after moving things back, there were less than 500 in my pocket. In case the live broadcast doesn't work this time, Li Qiaoqiao really needs to seriously consider growing vegetables and buying vegetables to make money, otherwise, take orders and deal with them at home to earn some extra money. Li Qiaoqiao's idea of deviated from farming and making extra money hadn't taken shape, but he tripped over the bag strap hanging from his hand, and almost hit his head on the iron gate. She is completely awakened, this farming system is intentional. As long as she has the slightest tendency to play sloppy and try to fish in troubled waters, it will strike unceremoniously. And like she took the initiative to plan and design what fruit trees to plant, let them develop, and there is no reward. She muttered to herself, this system is definitely a failure thrown out by some galaxy, forcing people to farm, the flaw is that it is inhumane, the data requirements are cold, and there is no upgrade. Li Qiaoqiao is not a character who likes to complain about herself. Since she knew she couldn't do anything else, she planned to study how to fix the live broadcast. If it wasn't for the house to have internet, she would have paid for the internet fee. Just as she was searching beta to find out the process of the live broadcast, the phone rang. Li Qiaoqiao looked down and answered with raised eyebrows. Hey! Qiaoqiao! You've answered the phone. I've called many times these days, but your place shows that you are not in the signal area. I thought you went to some remote mountain. The Nai family has a job fair this weekend. Are you going? Song Lexiu said in a high voice. Li Qiaoqiao rubbed his ears. Keep your voice down, I'm going to be deafened by your yelling. I remember your little fairy temperament. The human design collapsed. Although they didn't face each other, Li Qiaoqiao could almost imagine Song Lexiu's expression, and she must have rolled her eyes and raised her feet carelessly to refute. That's all right, what's the relationship between us, don't tell the truth. It's not because I think you admire the senior, I know that his company has a job fair, and I will contact you as soon as possible. Song Lexiu and Li Qiaoqiao have been in college for 4 years, and their relationship can be regarded as a pair of bad friends. Study hard together? That doesn't exist. Every time before and after the exam, they have to fight each other, and then read the night to read and pass it with all A. Every year, they have a little bit of friendship. As for Nai Yunking's matter, not to mention Li Qiaoqiao, almost 80% of the female students at Beijing University are senior brother Nai Yunking's fans, so Li Qiaoqiao is quite calm and doesn't try to hide it. Who doesn't like handsome men and beautiful women? As long as they don't fantasize about breaking through the dimensional wall, they are already very satisfied if they can catch a few glances from a distance. Here I have to say that when Li Qiaoqiao first met Song Lexiu, she was astounded. She felt that this girl was not in the entertainment industry but learned French. I am participating in a talent show held by a TV station. I don't have time recently, and I don't want to go to work. I think farming is good. Li Qiaoqiao said against his will. Song Lexiu repeated with a question mark on her head, farming the land? Qiaoqiao, you don't have a fever, do you? How much money can you earn by doing that? And you don't know how to do it, do you still need to spend money to rent land? Li Qiaoqiao explained to her the fantasy experience of the previous 2 days. After a while Song Legs chuckled, okay, a rich woman who has inherited several mountains and 100 acres of land, if you really plan to do a live broadcast, it's hard to say I can also help you advertise in the future. Li Qiaoqiao chuckled and said, all right, thanks to Miss Sister's favor, after Miss Sister makes her debut this time, I will definitely find you to advertise for free to gain your popularity. Who knew that this joke would really tell the truth later, but it's up to whoever catches the heat. The author has something to say, good night. The actual situation is a bit more complicated than expected. When Li Qiaoqiao was about to sow seeds, he realized that the wheat seeds he purchased were not enough. In fertile plains, 15 to 18 caddies of wheat seeds can be planted per mu. In order to ensure the output of wheat, about 25 caddies of wheat must be planted per mu. In short, the wheat seeds that Li Qiaoqiao had just signed for and paid for were not enough before they were warmed up. The wheat seeds originally planned to be 10 caddies per mu were only enough for 50 acres of land, and the remaining 50 acres could not be developed and used. Li Qiaoqiao was so worried that he was holding his 300 yuan with tears in his eyes. Sun Xiaoxiu and Mo Lao-san obviously didn't understand Li Qiaoqiao's sadness, and comforted them, I think 50 acres is good, and the rest can be planted to order vegetables. Vegetables grow fast. Besides what they eat, more can be sold. Lose. Li Qiaoqiao's eyes brightened. Yes, you can grow vegetables. Vegetables are not as expensive as wheat. If you build a vegetable greenhouse, this vegetable will not worry about selling in winter, and you can sell it to city nearby. There are so many things to think about, but we still need to start sowing wheat seeds. Many of the current agriculture relies on machinery to achieve sowing and harvesting. If Li Qiaoqiao has more money, water pipes can be buried on the ground, and automatic irrigation can be done. Just thinking about it is so easy. Li Qiaoqiao was envious of this farming method. It is a pity that the reality is that after purchasing the vegetable seeds, Li Qiaoqiao, who is dry and only has 300 yuan bills left, can only rent a machine for 1 day to sow all 50 acres of good wheat seeds and 30 acres of vegetable seeds. Li Qiaoqiao left some open spaces there on purpose. Sun Xiaoxiu wondered why they didn't plant them together, but Li Qiaoqiao fooled people by saying that they bought some new varieties of seeds from the city and wanted to see them all. That is to say, no one objected to what Li Qiaoqiao said. After all, she looked like a cultural person. Naturally, cultural people are different from Sun Xiaoxiu and the others. When they came to Daowen village to farm, they must want to experiment with some new crop seeds. Normal. In the past, there were no agronomists in charge of crops, but now they are all scientifically guided. Even if the big guys don't understand, they can almost understand it by reading news reports every day. New species represent higher yields and maybe even better flavors. On the evening of the day when the seeds were sown, Li Qiaoqiao looked at the entrance of Daowen village, where everyone had already returned home for dinner, and took out the nutrient solution from the system to water. The area of 1 mu of land is about 60 meters long and 10 meters wide. The size of 100 acres. Li Qiaoqiao poured water back and forth with the sprinkler on his back. It took him 2 days to finish the calculation, and the soles of his feet were blistered when he walked. And she also found that she didn't have to be overly careful, because she had to water enough at the beginning, and no one knew what she was watering, so there was no need to act in the middle of the night. Live streaming of Li Qiaoqiao has already started. When sowing seeds, I open the live streaming software on my mobile phone, register an account, and follow the broadcast throughout the whole process. Unfortunately, I don't know if the account is too new, except for 3 or 2 people who entered the live broadcast room by mistake. No one came in to look again. Li Qiaoqiao didn't care either. It's impossible to explode on the first day. As long as she insists on live broadcasting every day, there will always be 100 people watching it in a month, right? Lee Kuo usually doesn't watch live broadcasts, and doesn't have an intuitive understanding of millions of popular internet celebrities. With her new qualifications, an increase of 100 and 100 should be no problem, right? The next day Lee Kuo turned on the live broadcast on time. If she hadn't subscribed to the unlimited data package on her mobile phone, she would probably have bald hair if she used the data. The other 3 people who had followed the Douyin account in the live broadcast room also received the news that the live broadcast had started. They all turned on their phones and it seemed that it was already bright at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning, the office workers were on the way, and the student party had already arrived in the classroom. Lu Swimin was the first fan who paid attention to Douyin's live broadcast room. She had nothing to do after eating at noon yesterday afternoon. She took out her mobile phone in the office and opened the live broadcast room of panda.com casually. It was either singing or I was performing other performances, which were really boring. I swiped down and saw the name Douyin. The host is called Douyin, the number of viewers is 0, and the type of live broadcast is farming? Lu Swimin opened it with great interest, and saw the camera shake slightly. Before she could react, she heard the rumble of the machine. After watching for a long time, she realized that the anchor seemed to be in a car. Looking out from the camera, there is an endless field in front of you. The machine seems to be turning over the land for sowing, because Lu Swimin saw the anchor driving back and forth plowing the field. Surrounded by green hills, on the open land, there are only neat mounds rising to form beautiful parallel lines, which is very curative for obsessive-compulsive disorder. Although the anchor didn't talk much and didn't show her face, but in the few words she talked with people, the image of a smiling little girl appeared on the paper. It wasn't until the live broadcast ended that she realized that she had watched others farming. Many hours. Pay attention to the live broadcast room of the well-booked anchor, and clicked in again the next day by accident. The anchor is still the cold anchor, and the other 2 big brothers chat with each other with a barrage of sympathy. Baby bye, let's pay attention to each other as friends, and we will make an appointment to watch the anchor Chongtian together in the future. Sherman, okay. You also like to watch field ducks. I thought I was the only one who liked to watch them. Dafenga, hey, it's not like I fell into the pit of the host when I clicked in yesterday, it's quite interesting to watch. Swimin, yes, I watched it for more than an hour before I knew it, but Miss Douyin's voice is really nice. Dafenga, drooling JPG, Miss Douyin must be a beautiful woman, I don't accept rebuttals. Just the young lady's voice, I can drink for a year. Baby bye, it doesn't matter if it's not beautiful. Looking at these scenery every day, I feel like going out for a trip. Swimin, did Douyin say to go to the mountains to watch people cut trees? Why is this tree being cut down? Dafenga, it is said that it is convenient to plant fruit trees, and suddenly I feel that Miss Douyin is a big landlord. Does such a large land and mountains belong to her? Shock JPG. The new passers-by looked at the bullet screen in bewilderment, not understanding what everyone was talking about, and the number of people reached 100 faster than Lee Kuo expected. They invited their relatives and friends to come and see real people farming. Now raising cats in the cloud can no longer satisfy everyone's spiritual needs. What kind of fairy operation is farming? Looking at other people farming, it seems that I have also planted a lot of land. Lee Kuo didn't know that the popularity of the live broadcast room had begun to rise, so he put his mobile phone in the front pocket of his overalls as usual, and didn't care about it anymore. Lao-san has already released the news, and also set a time, saying that it will be open for a week, so on this day, there are people coming and going at the foot of the mountain, and everyone is carrying tools for cutting trees. You call me and I call him, yes, it's quite spectacular to look at it all together. Sun Xiuxiu and Lao-san also brought their own axes to chop a tree and use it as firewood. The 2 mountains looked quite big, but the trees were not very lush, and compared with the surrounding hills, they were a bit barren. Lao-san also reminded Li Qiaoqiao about this matter. Although it is a good idea to plant fruit trees, it is also very likely to lose money and make money. If the fruit is not tasty and cannot be sold, the things will fall into his own hands. Li Qiaoqiao also has his own considerations. In addition to completing the tasks issued by the farming system, there must be other tasks in the future. Although I don't know how effective the nutrient solution rewarded by the system is, it should be no problem to keep these fruit tree seedlings alive. Even if the fruit can't be sold, let's develop some scenery and let people around come and visit, and we can always earn back the investment money. Li Qiaoqiao didn't come here for other reasons. After all, these two mountains belong to her now. If she doesn't nod her head in agreement, the big guy dares to do it herself. Seeing that the master was present, he put his heart in his stomach, and everyone had a brief conversation, and couldn't resist the excitement and went to the mountain to cut trees. Sun Xiaoxiu gave Li Qiaoqiao a hand, and said, "Just follow me and don't run around. Although this tree is not tall, it would be dangerous if it fell on someone. Be careful, you know." "Understood, Aunt Sun, I'll go up with you to have a look." Li Qiaoqiao said obediently, making Sun Xiaoxiu couldn't help stroking her hair. The voice is so cute that even the hearts of quiet newcomers are melted. I really want to see the true face of this young lady, but looking at the people around me, the beautiful anchor has already been called the Beauty Anchor Online Farming. The title is attractive. Only the voice is not positive, and there is a high probability that they either really want to hide behind the scenes or they don't look good. Of course, this regret can't stop everyone's enthusiasm for watching the live broadcast. It's really farming. After watching yesterday's sowing, I watched these villagers cut down trees. They fell down one by one and dragged them away with the prepared ropes. The scattered trees were almost wiped out. Although not everyone did it by themselves, but the bottom of my heart is also very refreshing. What's the matter? Nearly 100 people in the live broadcast room watched the mountain gradually become empty, and felt that something was missing. They really wanted to plant saplings on it. Of course, Li Qiaoqiao also planned this way. Because the trees on the mountain are not considered dense, a mountain was chopped down in one day. Because there are not many fruit tree seedlings, Li Qiaoqiao planned to do it himself the next day. Dig a hole and plant a tree. Of course, the most fundamental reason was that she was short of cash and hired others to do everything. She was not yet rich enough, so the next day she picked up a shovel and a bucket and went to the foot of the mountain. Others cut down trees, but she planted them. Sun Xiaoxiu and Lao-san are also on the mountain today. They wanted to help plant together, but Li Qiaoqiao refused. "There aren't many saplings here, so I can do it myself. My little girl can help deliver the things. Aunt Sun, you can do your own work first. I can do it myself." Li Qiaoqiao's voice was soft but firm, and there was a smile in his dark eyes, making Aunt Sun shake her head helplessly. "Okay, I'll go first. If you have anything to do, tell Xiao to run away, don't do it yourself." It's not that Sun Xiaoxiu is rambunctious, it's that Li Qiaoqiao doesn't look like a farm worker. He is white and handsome for a little girl like me. I'm afraid that my palms will be worn out if I really plant it for a day. The author has something to say. One update arrives. When Li Qiaoqiao was working, the number of people in the live broadcast room decreased slightly, mainly because he couldn't keep fishing during working hours, so he took advantage of his free time to glance over. When I turned on my phone at noon and looked again, I found that the camera had changed its angle of view, facing the clear and clean stream. "Hey, there is still a stream on this mountain?" The creek was found by Mo Xiao with Li Qiaoqiao. Seeing that Li Qiaoqiao wanted to run back to fetch water, she directly told her that there was a stream in the back mountain. "Sister, come here. Dad told me that no one can go in. Xiahua and I like to come here to catch fish. There are a lot of them." Mo Xiao walked with an empty bucket with a smile on her face. By Li Qiaoqiao's side, Li Qiaoqiao nodded and looked up at the mountain. Compared with the bustling and noisy crowd on the next mountain, this place has a sense of tranquility. Although it is still a winding path, it is full of wildness. Especially as they walked up the stream, the water flow gradually increased and the river channel widened. There should be a source of living water on it, maybe there will be lake water? When Yu and Xiaohua came over, what else was there? Li Qiaoqiao asked as he walked. Mo Xiao blinked and said, there is a lake, and there is also a water curtain cave. But I can't go up to the water curtain cave, so I just looked around by the water. Water curtain cave? The people in the live broadcast room felt that they were about to see something incredible. Could it be as big as Monkey King's water curtain cave? This mountain is said to belong to the Anchor Lady? Wow, at this moment, everyone has turned into lemon essence. They also want to become Nongfu Spring, which has land, mountains, and water curtain caves. Li Qiaoqiao followed Mo Xiao up, passing over the barrier of trees. Before he saw it, he heard the sound of rushing water and cool steam rushing towards him. A rather large waterfall gushed down from a high place and landed on the huge lake on the ground, causing countless splashes. Li Qiaoqiao froze in place, marveling at the uncanny craftsmanship of nature. Mo Xiao obviously got used to it and didn't take it seriously. She said, "Big sister, you can cut down the tree and plant some fruit trees next to it, it's very convenient to water." "No, no, you can't cut it." Li Qiaoqiao waved his hand and shook his head. Mo Xiao looked puzzled, didn't she agree to cut down the tree? Li Qiaoqiao looked at the surrounding scenery with a smile in her eyes. She only went up a mountain and thought it was the same situation here, so she made a hasty decision. There are natural scenery here, even if it is not suitable for farming, but there are some high ornamental trees, no matter it is spring, summer, autumn, and winter, it is suitable for people to visit and relax in all seasons. The land needs to be planted, but live broadcasting is one aspect. She can also consider setting up an integrated tour route. There will always be people who want to have a picnic near the city, so this place is very suitable. It's a pity that the roads in Daowen village are still too broken. If she wants to get to where she wants to be, the roads still need to be built first. If you want to get rich, you must first build roads. My predecessors have never deceived me. The scenery here is very good. It would be a pity if all the trees were cut down. Li Qiaoqiao said with emotion. The people in the live broadcast room thought that planting trees was very good the day before, but this time when they saw the waterfall, they immediately felt that it is better to plant trees or something. If you are tired from farming, you can come here to catch fish and grill fish, so happy. When the two went back, each of them carried a bucket of water. After Li Qiaoqiao finished watering, he went to Mo Lao-san. Seeing that everyone was so happy to cut down trees, he said embarrassedly, "Uncle Mo, I don't want to see the mountain next door. The tree was cut down, I want to keep it." Mo Lao-san was surprised for a while, nodded and said, "It's nothing, if you don't chop it, you won't chop it, but, did you just hang out with Xiao? Otherwise, why did you suddenly change your mind?" Li Qiaoqiao nodded shyly, and said in shame, "It's because I didn't think carefully. The scenery there is very good. Just plant some trees. You don't need to chop them down, and you can go up there to play in the future. It's very good." Mo Lao-san nodded understandingly, "Little girl, I just like to do these things." Although the waterfall looks pretty to Mo Lao-san, but it is beautiful but not edible, it is more practical to use a variety of things to use the top of the mountain point. According to Li Qiaoqiao's thinking, although I'm sorry for breaking the appointment, everyone cut down the tree on this mountain, and if the other tree is not cut down, nothing will happen. But I didn't expect that the villagers were more resentful than Li Qiaoqiao thought, and Mo Lao-san didn't do anything to say it, and even made a fuss in front of Li Qiaoqiao. "Girl, it's not kind of you to do this. Let us cut down the tree you agreed to, and you plant your own fruit tree." Are you still regretting it now? The villagers of Youll village directly held the chainsaw in their hands and looked at the Moor as if threatening. Molao-san frowned and said, Li Si, don't make trouble. These two mountains belong to Li Qiuqiu. You are not happy that she asked you to cut down a tree from a mountain. Who owes you? If you have the ability, do it yourself. Find another mountain to chop. Now it is stipulated that it is not allowed to cut down trees casually, and all areas have requirements for the age of trees. Although the trees on this mountain are not very good, these villagers also know that they are cut down and sold to people who do timber business. They may have earned a lot of money, but behind their backs they often laughed at the girl for being stupid. Now that she is not allowed to cut it off, they feel that half of the money in their pockets has been lost, so how can they not change their faces? Anyway, I don't care. It was agreed at the time that we can cut down this tree at will. If you change your mind, you can change your mind unless you give us money. Li Silai said straightforwardly. The live broadcast room also exploded, accusing these people of being too shameless, asking you to cut down trees on other hills to plant fruit trees, but now it's just another mountain that won't let you cut down, and you have to make up for it money? What a big face! Unexpectedly, when the big guys were filled with righteous indignation, someone would actually speak up for the villagers. Long Long's wife, but don't you think Daowin is too much? I made an agreement and now I'm back on my word. Didn't those people come here in vain? Isn't it normal to make up money? Lu Swimin was so angry when he saw this kind of speech, he clapped the keyboard and started to speak, completely ignoring whether his boss would see him fishing at work. Swimin, is the NC upstairs? People in Daowin have said that it is enough to cut down this mountain, but they just say that the other one does not need to be cut down. What is Bailet? Did they come away empty-handed? That's right, everyone has accused them. Look at how many trees these people have placed at their feet, and they have made a lot of money by using them casually, but now they make the anchor lose money. What kind of fallacy is this? It's your duty if you don't give it to you. The tree belongs to you, so you can cut it down as you like. What's the matter with these villagers? Sun Xiuxiu also murmured in Li Qiuqiu's ear, these are not villagers from Daowin village and Shanchuan village, so we are not so cheeky. No one came from Daowin village because most of them were old and powerless, while Shanchuan village was rich, and people didn't use firewood for cooking, so they didn't bother to come. Therefore, most of the people who come here are villagers from Ljia village and Wangjia village, which are farther away, and the per capita situation in Daowin village is almost the same, but the difference is that because it is close to the wholesale market in the town, most young people stay in the village. In the village, almost all the mighty ones came this time. So when they quarreled, they fell to one side. These people obviously didn't want to give up their vested interests, nor did they want to give up the tree on another mountain. Who would want to earn less when they could make more money? Li Qiuqiu frowned. She didn't expect that the follow-up would be so troublesome. It was impossible to lose money. Not to mention that she has no money now. Even if she has money, it doesn't make sense. Moreover, these people are obviously dependent on her, and they have already started to talk about that if they plant fruit trees in the future, they can be hired to collect them, and the labor cost is calculated by the day. I'm young, so you're not lying to me, are you? Li Qiuqiu looked at these people with a simple expression, and he looked like a young girl who hadn't experienced much in the world. Li Si and his companion looked at each other secretly, and said, whoever lied to you, we are all thinking of you. From now on, you will be from the villagers, whoever lied to you. The people in the live broadcast room immediately cursed, folks. This is because the anchor lady is young and wants to deceive people, right? If it wasn't for the host not watching the barrage, they really wanted to scold them online for their ulterior motives. The corners of Li Qiuqiu's lips were slightly curved, and he said with a smile in his eyes, actually, I also want to ask Uncle Liangmin about this matter. I don't know if he would call it a random felling of trees this time. If you say it's okay, I'm relieved. Li Si's face changed and he asked directly, you cut down the tree without asking Jin Liangmin? Bah, girl, are you cheating on your grandpa? As he said that he was going to hit someone, Mo Lao-san stood in front of Li Qiaoqiao and grabbed Li Si's hand. His strong body blocked the small Li Qiaoqiao tightly, and he stared and cursed, you who is that grandpa? Keep your mouth clean. Li Qiaoqiao hid behind and poked his head and said, everyone is from the village, what's there to be angry about? Sun Xiaoxiu understood Li Qiaoqiao's plan, so she yelled at Li Si irritatingly, and hurried forward and said, hurry up and leave, Secretary Jin will come to fine you later, there is nothing we can do. Li Si and the others looked at each other, shouted bad luck, spat, cursed and dragged the tree onto their tractor and left, leaving diesel exhaust all over the place. After everyone left, Mo Lao-san breathed a sigh of relief, and Sun Xiaoxiu wiped the sweat from his brow. They were almost ready to go to Daowen village to call someone. Li Qiaoqiao said guiltily, I'm sorry, Uncle Mo and Aunt Sun, I caused you trouble. I didn't think carefully. Mo Lao-san laughed boldly and said, hey, don't worry about them, if you don't want to cut down the tree, just keep it, it's okay. Don't think too much about what they say, you can't control other people's thoughts, just manage your own. Sun Xiaoxiu also took a sip and said, leave them alone, I think it's good to keep that mountain, and you can go around in the future, it's good, your decision is right. Although they all said so, Li Qiaoqiao still blamed herself a little. She had never planned such a large field, so she did it as a matter of course. And the live broadcast room was completely turned upside down because of these villagers. The author has something to say, the second update. Li Qiaoqiao sent Mo Lao-san and his wife away, and carried the bucket back. When he sat down, he realized that the mobile phone had not turned off the live broadcast room. After rushing up, she stared at the screen intently, and realized that they were so excited because of what happened just now. These villagers are really funny. The land is not theirs. If the tree is not allowed to be cut down, they will lose money. What's the point? Although what these people say is too much, the anchor is also too much. People who go back on their word are the worst. Didn't you see the scenery of the waterfall? Does the anchor still insist on cutting down trees? Is it good to be bare? It's not me. Although the two sides insist on their opinions, I still take the lead. After all, there are many trees on a mountain. They obviously can't continue to cut down today, and there is no waste of time to talk about it. Besides, how many trees have they transported by car, haven't you counted them? A tree counts as 100, and today they earned 1,000. Upstairs, even in theory, but most of them are still dragged back to be used as firewood, and they are all sold for money. It's really ridiculous to go upstairs. If it's firewood, so many are enough to burn, right? Although the anchor lady didn't explain it before, she still thinks that 1 or 2 trees per person is nothing. You piled up dozens of trees by yourself. Whether it is for self-use or self-sale, everyone knows. Li Qiaoqiao frowned and read all the bullet screens. After a moment of silence, he still said to the mobile phone, this matter is over. In the final analysis, I didn't think about it. I won't discuss it. I turned off the phone. Goodbye. Before the screen sent a new message, Li Qiaoqiao turned off the phone, lying on the sofa and didn't want to get up, doing daily work from morning to night. As long as she raised her eyes, she could almost see the virtual countdown numbers hanging in the air. After finishing the work in the field, the system generously upgraded her to level 8. Today, this mountain also wiped out almost all the trees, and was successfully promoted to level 9. It was the other mountain that really gave Li Qiaoqiao a headache. According to the rules of the system, she should also clear out that mountain and plant fruit saplings. Now that she is impulsive, she still has to face the punishment given by the system, which makes her really dizzy. After being paralyzed for a long time, Li Qiaoqiao still decided to face the reality, sat up in her hair, and pulled out the system page again, intending to spend the night researching exactly how the farming system is regulated. Is it only possible to plant fruit trees and the like? The refreshed task only says to turn all the forests into a plantable state, and turn them into ornamental trees, isn't that okay? Li Qiaoqiao tentatively said, seeing that the system didn't respond at all. I had to turn over the entire control page before I found the note in the instructions for use. The host can define the method and scope of planting by itself, and refuse to waste extravagance and waste. So, it's okay to turn it into an ornamental plant. Li Qiaoqiao was overjoyed, and a long list of promotional plans had already flashed through his mind. The poor wallet is finally about to swell. Li Qiaoqiao didn't even have time to regret the behavior of rushing to reclaim the top of the mountain without seeing the terms clearly, but there is actually nothing to regret. Unlike the back mountain, the front mountain is indeed a lot barren, and it's not bad to replace it all with fruit trees. Just thinking about the stretches of fruit forests at that time, setting up a happy farm to pick fruits by yourself, and then going to the other side to climb the mountain for a picnic after eating, it's not bad to think about it. But the prerequisite for all of this is to have money. She can't manage such a large place by herself. It is impossible to ask people to go sightseeing and pick fruits by themselves in less than 2 years. Li Qiaoqiao, who couldn't sleep after dinner, walked to the glass greenhouse on the 3rd floor and looked down at the farmland he planted. It was so dark that he couldn't see the specific situation clearly. It seemed to see a black shadow flashing away. Li Qiaoqiao immediately stood up straight and squinted his eyes to look downstairs. The farm surrounded by darkness was like a monster crouching quietly in the night with its mouth wide open, making people tremble with fear. Because of the problem with the setting of the greenhouse, you can see the outside scenery clearly from the inside, but you can't see anything when you look in from the outside. Naturally, it is not clear that Li Qiaoqiao is standing on a high place and looking down. After waiting for a while, Li Qiaoqiao really waited until 2 figures were standing at the door, and he didn't know what he was doing. The power grid had been turned on, and he didn't know if he was planning to come in through the door to steal something or something else. In short, call the police for the sake of calculation. Without hesitation, Li Qiaoqiao took out his mobile phone and called the police, but because of the location of Daowen village, it took about 20 minutes for the nearest police station to send someone over. Li Qiaoqiao frowned and looked downstairs, and asked the system directly, I have already upgraded to level 10 today, is there anything suitable for the current situation? In fact, Li Qiaoqiao was looking for something to say. She had already made up her mind to go downstairs to get a kitchen knife to protect herself. If these 2 little thieves planned to plot against her, she would never let them go. Unexpectedly, the farming system said directly in a mechanical voice, the host's points can buy the following 2 things, shepherd dogs and anti-wolf fluid, do you want to exchange them with points? Li Qiaoqiao hastily glanced at it. After working for so long, she pitifully accumulated more than 100 points. The shepherd dog costs 80 points, and the anti-wolf lotion costs 30 points. Does she have a choice at this time? Change. Li Qiaoqiao said decisively. I saw an adult Scottish shepherd dog appearing out of nowhere in the empty greenhouse, with golden fur mixed with snow-white patterns. If it weren't for the emergency, Li Qiaoqiao would have knelt down and rubbed the head of this shepherd dog. Along with the shepherd dog, there was also a bottle. Li Qiaoqiao didn't doubt the system, it's just that this thing can be used in front of the thief, right? If she was unlucky enough to touch a knife or something in their hands, would she still have the life to use this anti-wolf lotion? 10 points can be spent to spray the target with anti-wolf fluid. The system said again. Flowers. Li Qiaoqiao felt that this farming system should not urge people to farm. This is obviously a profiteering system, and it does everything possible to make people spend points without explanation. Li Qiaoqiao took out the anti-wolf liquid, tried to spray it on the glass in front of her a few times, and saw that the spray disappeared in place. She raised her eyebrows and used it a few more times, and then heard 2 screams from downstairs. Li Qiaoqiao snorted, put away the anti-wolf liquid quite relieved, and planned that if another thief came over next time, she would not have to buy it from the system again. After going downstairs and waiting for a while, the traffic outside did not stop. The sound of the police car was coming from far to near. She heard the sound of opening the car door, and then she came out of the house. She was sure that the police had the person before opening the door and looking out. Go! As soon as Qi Guanzhao handcuffed the suspect, he saw the door open in front of him, and a little girl looked out. The moonlight was shining softly. Although there was no light, everyone could still be seen clearly. Li Qiaoqiao murmured in confusion, "Why did these 2 appear here?" Qi Guanzhao asked, "Little girl, do you know them? The author has something to say, 3 more. Good night." Li Qiaoqiao nodded, and asked softly, "Should I follow along to make a statement?" Qi Guanzhao gave Li Qiaoqiao a funny look and said, "Just make a record, and you can come to the police station tomorrow morning. It's so late, it's not safe for the little girl to run back and forth." Li Qiaoqiao nodded again, looked at the 2 people and added, "Then do they want to see a doctor first?" In a very considerate tone. Qi Guanzhao said with emotion, "The little girl is so kind. She was sneaking around at the gate of her courtyard, and she was very disturbed and kind-hearted at first glance, but the little girl was still worried about the bodies of these 2 little thieves." In fact, Qi Guanzhao was also a little puzzled. The courtyard door was opened in front of him, no one had come out just now, and it seemed that the little girl should be at home alone today, since just now, there has been no movement in the house. The 2 who were lying on the ground and taking covered their eyes as if they had been sprayed with venom, but in fact there was no sign of a third person other than them, which was also strange. Shaking his head to get rid of these thoughts, Qi Guanzhao said, "Yes." Qi Guanzhao and his colleagues pushed him into the car, waved to Li Qiaoqiao, and drove him back to the institute. After looking for a doctor to see the 2 people, they found that the problem was not serious. Although they were temporarily blind, their vision has improved, and it has improved after flushing through the water. But the strange thing is that there is no trace of this drug, which cannot be detected by the instrument, and according to the 2 people, they also suddenly felt a tingling pain in the eyes, and it became like this. The situation described in their mouths was locked, more like the work of ghosts than human beings. Qi Guanzhao, as an atheist, of course would not believe these words. Knowing that there was nothing serious, he interrogated the 2 separately. At the beginning, the 2 of them were stubborn and refused to admit that they were walking there, but in the end they made a breakthrough under Qi Guanzhao's overnight questioning, and Li Si was the first to retort. "Uncle Policeman, I really don't have evil intentions. It was the guy who dragged me and said that there are more good things in that girl's house, so I got a little delusional and wanted to steal something." Li Si said pitifully. Everyone knows that in China, theft and burglary are not the same sentencing standards. It is wrong for him to be petty, but he should be locked up for a few days of education at most. It is not a crime of the same degree as that guy. Qi Guanzhao slapped his pen on the table impatiently. "Be honest. Don't talk nonsense, what's going on?" Li Si covered his eyes with white gauze, lowered his head, and explained the whole story dejectedly. On the same day, Li Si and other villagers dragged the wood back to the village cursing. The more they thought about it, the more angry they became. Pan Rong and Li Si were also good friends, and they often saw each other at the poker table. This time they knew that their friend was not doing well, so they gave him this idea, telling him to go into the house and steal some good things. As for Li Qiaoqiao, Pan Rong felt that such a little girl was at home alone. Even if she was taken advantage of a little, she would not make a fuss about it. Everyone got what they needed, everyone was happy, and there was no loss. Liang Fengqin, who was handling the case with Qi Guanzhao, also slapped her pen on the table angrily. If it hadn't been for the rule not to beat people, she really wanted to kick these two out of the stove, not gaining any benefits and messing with your relationship. Want to destroy people's innocence? I never thought about what the little girl will do in the future, how much psychological shadow will it have? Who gave you the courage to break the law and commit crimes? Chi Guanzhou's face darkened. He thought it was just a burglary, but he didn't expect that there was such an inside story here. What made him angry was that even if they admitted it, they couldn't be sentenced. Because people just think so, and haven't implemented it yet. Apart from criticizing the fine and education, it will not help at all. The place where Li Qiaoqiao lives will still be dangerous in the future. Although he was angry, he still recorded all the written exams calmly. After a long day of work, the sky became slightly brighter. Li Qiaoqiao got up at dawn and ate rice porridge. After wiping his mouth, he went outside to take a look around his own place before going to the police station. The farming system is indeed a farming system. When she walks into the wheat field she is planting, she will automatically jump out of the moisture content of the soil, whether pests need to be removed, and which pesticides can be exchanged for use together. Suggestions are all good suggestions, and things are not too expensive. It seems that 10 points and 10 points are not too many, but Li Qiaoqiao almost used up the points in his early 100s in order to exchange anti-wolf fluid and shepherd dogs. So now I can only watch dryly and there is no other way. It seems that the system is urging her to complete the task in another disguised form. Although there is no time limit, Li Qiaoqiao still feels that it cannot be delayed for too long. To speed up the pace and keep moving forward. The seeds provided by the system also change 3 times a day after being sprayed with nutrient solution. Although I don't know what kind of crop it is growing well. In a few days, green shoots have been drawn out, which is faster than vegetables. Li Qiaoqiao wanted to prevent outsiders to visit. A fence was specially set up to surround this piece of land. Sun Xiaoxiu and the others found it strange, but they didn't ask too many questions. They probably built a fence to prevent wild cats and dogs from running around and ruining the crops, so it's not unusual. Moreover, Li Qiaoqiao has a lot of planting methods. Sun Xiaoxiu and Mo Lao-san don't quite understand it, and they don't pay much attention after planting. They walk around the field every day, and when they need watering, they pull a hose and start watering. I just put it there all the time, I don't even spray pesticides, and I don't worry about the grass growing in the ground. Or to put it even more bizarrely, there is really no grass growing in the field. Sun Xiaoxiu, Mo Lao-san, suddenly I feel very complicated in my heart, and I feel that I have planted the land for so many years. After inspecting the fields and fruit trees, Li Qiaoqiao went to find a car to take her to the police station. After running back and forth these days, she deeply felt that she should really buy a car when she had extra savings, otherwise it would be inconvenient to get in and out. Unlike hailing a taxi in the city with a single software, in Daowen village, there is no problem finding a car. A wealthy family in the village bought a tractor to deliver goods and pull people. It is convenient and charges a little toll, but the road is those who don't eat and bask in the sun are not within the consideration of the car owner. After Li Qiaoqiao entered, he ran into Chi Guanzhou who had dark circles under his eyes and was pouring coffee. Even though he was working overtime in the early morning, he still had to come on duty in the morning, so he could only drink black coffee to refresh himself. Seeing the victim came, Chi Guanzhou couldn't explain what he was feeling, so he invited the person to a chair, sat her down and took the notes to go through the process. Li Qiaoqiao didn't come out that night, so the transcript actually didn't have any actual content. After the process was over, Chi Guanzhou hesitated and asked, "Are you going to sue them?" But because they didn't break into the house, so. Li Qiaoqiao looked at Chi Guanzhou, who was wearing a police uniform and frowning deeply, in surprise, and said with a smile, "I know, this time, I think they can only live in peace for a few days. Don't worry, Uncle Policeman, I already have a solution. Chi Guanjiao was amused by Li Qiaoqiuo's tone. Uncle Policeman, you can call me by my name, and I will give you the number of our police station. If there is any situation, you can call the police, and we will rush there as soon as possible. Li Qiaoqiuo had a smile on his lips, and nodded with his eyes bent. He has a cute appearance and a clean temperament, like a clear lake, which makes people want to smile when they see it. Thank you, Officer Chi, then I will go back first. Li Qiaoqiuo said goodbye to Chi Guanjiao with a smile. When I got back home by car, I found a group of people gathered around the gate of the courtyard, chattering and not knowing what they were doing. Before Li Qiaoqiuo frowned, she heard a sharp girl shouting, "Fox! Come out! Ah! You made Pan wrong like that and put him in jail, you black-heart whore! I'm Triple X." Although Li Qiaoqiuo didn't know Pan Rong's wife, just by hearing the woman's angry yelling and cursing, he knew what it means that the whole family does not enter the same door. This woman put a black pot on her head when she didn't figure out what was going on, and Buddhists would be angry. Or maybe this woman knows what kind of virtue her husband is, but she doesn't care how the dirty water is splashed, so she just wants to breathe out. Li Qiaoqiuo was about to speak in a deep voice, when she heard Sun Xiaoxiu bawled and said, "Qiwa! What I say is so unreasonable. Why don't you talk about your Pan wrong? Don't say he likes it all day long. Even the idlers in our village have heard of it. Just talking about his virtues, do you really think that others look up to him? Do you have any brains?" Wang Qiwa put her hips on her hips and scolded back, "Otherwise? If they didn't have a leg, Pan Rong would be at her door in the middle of the night? Why didn't he go to someone else's house, but to her house? If it wasn't for the fact that she was a coquettish bastard, now she's going to beat her up. Can Pan Rong go in?" Wang Qiwa didn't understand the law and didn't want to understand it. She knew that Pan Rong was the pillar of the family. As a man, it was inevitable that he would mess with women. Now that the trouble has reached the police station, that's not acceptable. Anyway, I don't care. If Pan Rong doesn't come back for a day, I'll come here to make trouble for a day. Don't be easy, everyone. Wang Qiwa said confidently, standing at the door with a strong body, tightly blocking all exits. A lot of people from Daowen village also came out. Of course, it wasn't Wang Qiwa who helped, but they were on the same front as Sun Xiaoxiu, accusing Wang Qiwa of talking nonsense. Everyone in the 10 miles and 8 villages knows what your Pan wrong is like, so don't say it to dirty people's ears. Can this little girl fall in love with your Pan wrong? I'm so ridiculous. Look at his house. This place, this hill. If you want to find someone young, your Pan wrong is fat and ugly. He is old enough to be a father. No one wants to repost." Wang Qiwa blushed from embarrassment and anger, and clasped the door frame with both hands, making up her mind not to leave, not to make this woman's reputation in the village bad. How could she be willing? Although Pan Rong had some stealthy behavior before, but she didn't make a fuss in front of her eyes, so she just turned a blind eye, and now she has made a fuss to the police station, and the matter has become serious. If this woman is not allowed to withdraw the case, in case what if one person really squats in? You pull me again, and I'll bite you, let go, let go. Wang Qiwa stood firmly on the ground, not to mention her thick body, no matter what the people next to her couldn't pull her away. Sun Xiaoxiu's face turned black with anger. How many days has Li Qiaoqiuo moved here, and how many troubles have happened? Is it true that if someone lives alone, there is no backer? I don't even look at who owned this land before. Anyone who is somewhat related to the Mo family doesn't know the identity of this young lady? Mo Lao-san strictly forbade his daughter-in-law to gossip after hearing it from others, so as not to be picked up by others, but he didn't expect that he didn't show the banner of the Mo family, and some people who didn't want to open his eyes bumped into him. Li Qiaoqiuo couldn't bear to see this woman's clumsy acting skills anymore. She frowned and walked over from behind the crowd. She squeezed her hands, and Wang Kuiwa's wrists hurt, and she felt that she couldn't use any more force. Open position. Sorry, you blocked my door. Li Qiaoqiao said bluntly, looking straight at Wang Kuiwa without timidity. Wang Kuiwa looked at Li Qiaoqiao's exquisite and beautiful face and wanted to grab flowers. This little who seduces men dares to beat her? It's the other way around. I advise you to think carefully before you do anything. If you break into a private house, I can call the police and arrest you. Do you want to go behind the bars with your husband? Li Qiaoqiao crossed his arms and raised his eyebrows. Wang Kuiwa wanted to hit someone, but was blocked by other people, and said angrily, "How can I intrude? Is this land yours? I can stand wherever I like? Now you're out of control, you seduced my husband. Why is the time running out? Tell me Pan Rong and call the police to release me, or I will make you restless." Sun Xiaoxiu smiled and added, "Kuiwa, I'm sorry, the place where you are standing belongs to them. Did you forget that this land, including those 2 mountains, belong to Li Qiaoqiao? Hehe, they want to sue you, but it is a let me know." Others also said in a hurry, "That's right, didn't you know just now? This place belongs to Li Qiaoqiao, you like to stand in trouble and go home and stand. You still have the face to talk about seduction, you're a fool, you only have a lot of flesh on your body, tisk." Wang Kuiwa's face turned red and green, but before she could continue tearing it up, the phone on her body rang, and she picked it up. She didn't know what was said on the other end of the phone, and her face turned black. Hung up the phone and gave them a hard look. "The people of Daowen village, I will remember them all. Next time I will come to bring you bad luck." Wang Kuiwa left these words, twisted her strong waist and left. The people in Daowen village saw that it was all right, so they comforted Li Qiaoqiao not to be as knowledgeable as this shrew, and went back to busy with their own affairs. Sun Xiaoxiu and Li Qiaoqiao got closer, so they stayed. Li Qiaoqiao opened the door, and the shepherd dog rushed over. Sun Xiaoxiu saw a dog jump directly on Li Qiaoqiao, and screamed in fright. Li Qiaoqiao pressed the shepherd dog's head, turned to Sun Xiaoxiu and apologized, "I'm sorry, Aunt Sun, I surprised you, this is the shepherd dog I bought, called Apple. It's very obedient and doesn't bite." Sun Xiaoxiu was just taken aback by surprise. In fact, she was not afraid of dogs. After hearing this, she looked at the beautiful golden shepherd dog in front of her and praised, "It's okay, I'm not afraid. This dog is so beautiful. Right, I have a dog at home. Only, it's much safer. Don't take what Wang Kuiwa said just now. I don't know what she means. She doesn't do anything other than spray dung all day long. Everyone knows that you definitely look down on Pan Rong. Don't worry. Everyone in Daowen village believes in you." Sun Xiaoxiu explained softly, fearing that the little girl would be frightened. Li Qiaoqiao has met many people, and Wang Kuiwa, a shrew, is not enough for her to order. What she is most afraid of is the kind of person who is gentle and kind on the face, but merciless in stabbing the knife in the back. This kind of talent is really scary. "Aunt Sun, don't worry, I didn't take it to heart. Pan Rong ran to my door by himself, and the people from the police station checked it out carefully. White is white, and black is black. This thing can't fool anyone." Li Qiaoqiao lightly he said with a smile, rubbing Apple's head again with his hands. Sun Xiaoxiu's gaze also shifted to Apple. Looking at the cute dog, her mood improved a lot, and she didn't want to be entangled with these unlucky things anymore. "That's good, come to us if you have something to do. Although we don't have much skills, it's okay to help you stand up and scold others." Sun Xiaoxiu said with a smile. "This dog is so beautiful. From now on, you will always take it with you when you go out. If those people want to attack you, you can let the dog go. They run faster than anyone else." Sun Xiaoxiu said. Well, Apple will follow me in the future. It is very capable and can help me herd sheep in the future. Although there is no money, it does not hinder Li Qiaoqiuo's current plan. Sun Xiaoxiu had heard of it, but she didn't expect this shepherd dog to be beautiful and capable, and it looked very docile. She couldn't help being moved and wanted to buy one. Where did you buy it? I want to buy one too, if it's too expensive. The author has something to say. One update. It was impossible to buy, and only sold in the system. Li Qiaoqiuo could only say that a friend brought it to her from abroad, and she didn't know how much it cost, so Sun Xiaoxiu regretted giving up. I also thought to myself, these shepherd dogs abroad are really smart, and they are good at housekeeping and watching animals, but if they go abroad to buy just for a dog, the loss outweighs the gain. That's fine. Next time if he cuddles, give me a dog. Is it a male or a female? Sun Xiaoxiu said enthusiastically. Li Qiaoqiuo looked at Apple hesitantly. Would the one given by the system give birth to a dog? She doesn't know male or female. When she was concentrating on observing Apple, a list of information popped up on its head, the name Apple, and she was in a happy mood. Then when she saw that the male dog written on it had been neutered, she was relieved. This dog is neutered. Li Qiaoqiuo patted the dog's hair and raised his eyes firmly. Sun Xiaoxiu sighed regretfully, well, it's all gone. Since Li Qiaoqiuo is fine here, let's go back and cook, there are a lot of things waiting at home. After saying goodbye to Sun Xiaoxiu, Li Qiaoqiuo realized that the live broadcast hadn't started today. After thinking about it, he didn't have lunch today, so why not take the people in the live broadcast room to live broadcast live to catch and grill fish? As soon as I thought about it, I acted, rummaged through the first floor, found tools such as a straw hat and a pocket knife, and opened the live broadcast to go out. There were also a lot of people during the break time near noon in the live broadcast room, because the last time the villagers in the neighboring village made trouble, the popularity of this live broadcast room in Daowen suddenly increased a lot. Last time, Li Qiaoqiuo shut down too quickly, and didn't realize that his live broadcast room had 300 or 400 viewers. He mostly came to see what the best villagers were like, but he was attracted by the charming unspoiled original ecological environment. Instead, he stayed and followed the anchor. Today the anchor has not opened the live broadcast room. Everyone is still guessing that the anchor will not be in the mood to broadcast live because of those people's stimulation, right? On the mobile phone, I received a message that the anchor I followed started the live broadcast. Lu Swimming moved the fastest, and at the same time she entered the live broadcast room, there was another new avatar that she hadn't seen before, and it still had the original feeling that came with the system. Seeing the bumpy scene of the anchor walking on the road, she took the lead in sending out a barrage. Swimmin, do you also watch the live broadcast of Daowen? Did not see you yesterday. After a long time, there was no reply to the message. Lu Swimmin turned cold-hearted and stopped making fun of himself. When other people he knew came in, he discussed with them where the anchor was going and what to do. People who have watched Daowen's live broadcast from the beginning basically have a preliminary understanding of Daowen's situation. They know that her home has a large land and several mountains. According to the current direction of travel, it should go to the back mountain. I don't know what to do. Up. When Li Qiaoqiuo walked to the foot of the back mountain, he took out his mobile phone and prepared to take pictures of the scenery, only to find that the bullet screen was constantly popping up on the mobile phone, only to realize that the number of people watching online had already reached 500. Getting rich is just around the corner, and Li Qiaoqiuo's attitude has improved a lot. First, he took a good photo of the surrounding scenery before saying, "We are going to catch fish now," and then grill the fish. There is also a waterfall on the mountain. I will take you to see it later. Go see. Li Qiaoqiuo took pictures of the scenery while walking with the mobile phone in his hand. There was no need to look for the angle. The scenery here is beautiful enough. The stones shimmering under the gurgling stream, the water surface gradually widened as he walked higher and higher. Li Qiaoqiao put the phone back into the phone case, hung it around his neck, rolled up his trouser legs and rolled up his sleeves, saying, "Look, we are going into the water. In order to prevent the pants from getting wet, we have to roll them up, and we will get on them in a while. It's a simple trap, put the net bag, and the fish will fall into it automatically." Li Qiaoqiao has done this before, so there is no jerky feeling when doing it, but it is very familiar, with a sense of ease and ease. The people in the live broadcast room hadn't seen where the fish was, but after a while, they saw a fish appearing alive and kicking in their pockets. Is it so easy to catch fish now? Or is the fish on this mountain rather stupid, just catch one at random? Then it was time for Li Qiaoqiao's performance. I saw her put the fish into her waste basket, then bent down to see if there was any fish. Within a few minutes, she jumped into another one, and then there was a third one. Everyone numbly ordered takeaway and looked at their mobile phones, thinking that they could order a grilled fish at noon, but if they couldn't eat the anchor's grill, they could also order takeaway and have it delivered, right? Li Qiaoqiao withdrew the net bag after catching 3 fish. She didn't catch any more, she was alone, 3 fish was enough for her. Maybe she could invite Xiao to eat with her, and then bring a pot to make soup. After catching the fish and putting on his shoes, Li Qiaoqiao went into the mountain, picked up some dead branches, and only after reaching the waterfall did he start digging a hole for a fire. After the fire gets bigger, the fish with scales and guts removed is skewered on sticks and placed over the fire to start grilling. The people in the live broadcast room were not very hungry at first, but when they saw the anchor oiling and seasoning, the fish was steaming, and couldn't help swallowing, and then saw why the takeaway hadn't arrived yet. Feeling hungry, it swept through my mind in an instant, and I couldn't bear to take my eyes away from watching the live broadcast. I want to eat. I'm starving to death. Miss, give me one. Where is it? I'll fly over there. I thought it was a farming live broadcast room, but it turned into a landscape appreciation, and finally a food live broadcast. See you. It can't be coaxed. Miss Anchor is living such a fairy life. If I have mountains and land, and give me a network cable, I can last for 100 years. You can't wake up upstairs. You can't go shopping there and receive express delivery, and it will take several days and a week. If you go there for a week, you will come back crying. Li Qiaoqiao noticed these words while looking at the phone, and couldn't help but chuckled. Indeed, I didn't quite get used to it at first. Then why did you stay and live in Daowen? Could it be that you ran to farm after getting tired of living in a big city? Of course, he was cheated by an extremely unlucky system. Of course, this is not appropriate to say. Well, big cities are stressful, and it's nice to return to nature occasionally, with fields and land and scenic views, isn't it great? The chicken soup of Li Qiaoqiao brand is fragrant and delicious. Everyone can't help thinking whether this kind of life is what they want. Although they are very happy and like it when watching the live broadcast, but they must live in such a place for a long time. Will be bored to death. However, there is no need to worry about this, just watch the anchor plant the fields every day and make authentic food. Will it be ready soon? After Li Qiaoqiao cooked the fish, the live broadcast room had already started discussing whether there was a cave behind the water curtain cave, and the anchor would see if he could go up there. Li Qiaoqiao also reads bullet screens while eating. She has considered it too, but it is definitely not suitable to go in with her mobile phone. She has other plans. Go in first to see how it is inside, and when it opens, it will be a honest-op farmhouse. If so, this is the best place for adults to explore. I'll take you there next time. I'll go back and see how the fruit trees are growing. Li Qiaoqiao politely refused. Everyone just remembered that there was such a thing, and they all said it's okay, it's not urgent, we have to see how the water curtain cave goes up, it's quite spectacular from the bottom up, there's no place to stay, if you really want to go, you have to do it well, just be prepared. Li Qiaoqiao is not very worried about the condition of those fruit saplings. In fact, the last time I went to see them, they were sprayed with the nutrient solution rewarded by the system, and they grew well. It just takes a year or two for these things to grow, and there is no extra on hand. Cash. After watching the apple saplings and peach saplings with his mobile phone, Li Qiaoqiao walked to his vegetable field, and saw many tender green leaf buds sprouting from the ground from afar. It's only been a few days of hard work, and everyone in the live broadcast room is full of a sense of accomplishment. Watching the seeds grow and sprout with their own eyes is like watching their own juicy cabbage grow up and be edible. Even if these vegetables, the same is true for at least half a month before maturity. It is said that the water spinach will be ripe in 20 days. When the vegetables are ripe, I will show you how to stir-fry them. Li Qiaoqiao turned around the vegetable field with great interest, and was very honored to see the thriving appearance of the vegetable field. Although the farming system is pretty tricky, she still feels a sense of accomplishment when she grows something. When I got home, the live broadcast room was closed, but the people in the live broadcast room were still happy to help the host plan what else could be planted. Look at another hill that is already bald. You can grow something, such as lychee trees. All the orange trees are here, so that there are fruits to eat in all seasons. How good it is! Wake up, the anchor lady is alone, so I can't finish eating so much. Miss Darwin can sell the extra vegetables and fruits to others, so that they won't be wasted. I want to know where Miss Darwin is. It looks like it's in the north, and the accents of those villagers sound like people from S City, but the place is too big, so it's hard to confirm. Okay, since Darwin didn't say where it is, please don't disturb her life. We support her by watching the live broadcast. The bottom row is +1, and the rewards are also various, but everyone guesses that Darwin may be a novice, because they are completely indifferent when they see them rewarding gifts. Logically speaking, Darwin is not like this kind of person, so everyone waits. She looked surprised when she knew the truth. After exiting and turning off the phone, Ni Yunqing pinched the bridge of his nose. 2 days ago, Ni Yunping insisted on letting him pay attention to the live broadcast of his artistes. After downloading the software, he was told to go up and buy a wave of gifts to support the show. As a result, I forgot to uninstall it for the past 2 days. I just clicked in and saw the live broadcast of grilled fish. I felt a little interested and watched it. I didn't expect it to be a live broadcast of farming, which is quite interesting. Yunqing. Don't play with your phone, go out for a walk with me. I heard they said that the mountain scenery in Darwin village is good. Let's go there and have a look. Ni Shide shouted loudly, interrupting Ni Yunqing's thoughts. Okay, Grandpa, slow down. Ni Yunqing quickly stepped forward to support Ni Shide's arm, frowning slightly and said, shall we go again tomorrow morning? The sun is a little bit hot in the afternoon. Sunning is very good. My old bones are almost rusting, and if I don't go out, I will grow mushrooms. Ni Shide said humorously, seeing his grandson's disapproval. He rarely patted his hand and said, Your grandpa is not that old, he just climbed a mountain, I can do it. No matter how confident he was in what he said, when it was time for the real knife and real wooden warehouse to go into battle, Ni Shide stopped cooking after climbing for a while, but he still insisted on walking up because he didn't want his grandson to see the joke. Ni Yunqing has been paying attention to the situation of his grandfather. Seeing that Ni Shide is walking more and more slowly, and his legs and feet are getting heavier, he glanced at the bodyguard behind him, and he directly took out the folded ponytail, and the slightly cool sour plum juice is really a good way to relieve summer heat. Grandpa, rest for a while and drink something before leaving. Ni Yunqing persuaded Ni Shide's arm. Ni Shide went down the ladder, otherwise he would really be unable to walk even if he stood upright. He felt that he was really old, and then he looked at his grandson standing in front of him with a stern face. She also looked at him with a little tenderness, and couldn't help feeling proud. You sit too. Is there something going on in the company these 2 days? Nishide asked concerned. Since the eldest son retired and his wife went out to travel around the world a few years ago, the company has been taken care of by Ni Yunqing. Ni Yunqing, who had just returned from studying abroad at that time, didn't even have time to adapt, so he took up the post just like that, but the company didn't have any problems at all, and instead it was thriving under his management. Other shareholders also praised that the tiger father has no dogs, and even that the blue is better than the blue. This is also one of the reasons why Ni's He and his wife dared to leave the company directly to Ni Yunqing. His son is good enough and only needs one chance to prove it. It's nothing serious. Ni Yunqing shook his head and said, the breeze blew by, and a leaf fell on his shoulder. He reached out to take it, looked around, and always felt that the scenery was somewhat familiar. Then why have you been looking at your phone for the past 2 days? Could it be that you are watching the news? Nishide guessed. It's really that Ni Yunqing is usually too old a coder, and he almost never sees him for leisure and entertainment. When he has free time, he either reads financial reports or reads news and current events. He is more self-disciplined than him. Ni Yunqing couldn't help laughing. Could it be that he told his grandfather that he was actually watching an anchor farming in the past 2 days? It is estimated that he will suspect that he has a fever. Nothing. Ni Yunqing didn't answer directly, but asked directly, shall we go up the stream later? Ni Yunqing frowned indistinctly, always feeling that it was just a coincidence. This stream, this tree, could it be that Daowen is here? With a lot of guesses, Ni Yunqing waited for Nishide to rest and took the initiative to take him up. He knew the way like his own backyard. Nishide followed Ni Yunqing all the way up to a dense forest. Sound of water. Hey? Why is the sound of the water so loud here? Nishide asked in surprise, and the bodyguard behind him stood like a log, guarding the surroundings faithfully. Ni Yunqing looked at this waterfall rather dumbfounded. It turned out that the place he had been looking at for a long time in the past 2 days was so close to him. Of course, he didn't intend to tell his grandfather about this matter. Since Daowen didn't say where he lived, he just didn't want to be disturbed. Nishide looked at the surrounding scenery, and his face was full of surprise. He had never noticed that there was such a scenery here before, or maybe he left his hometown too early, only those old memories and figures, like yellowed the photo has blurred eyebrows, blurred memory. In the future, we will often come here to climb mountains. The air is much better than other places. Nishide said with great interest. Ni Yunqing who made up his mind to stay away from here and not disturb others. The author has something to say. Second watch, good night. Although the main purpose of Ni Yunqing's return this time was to relax with Nishide, it stands to reason that since Grandpa had this idea, he should encourage him, but thinking of Daowen, he still dismissed the idea of Nishide. Grandpa, didn't you say that you still want to visit Grandpa Wang? Come here next time when you have time. Anyway, the mountains will not run away here. Besides, this is a private venue, and you need the owner's permission to go around. Ni Yunqing said slowly. Said slowly. Nishide asked puzzledly, how do you know, kid? I thought you were with me every day, when did you know this? But which friend's mountain is this? Will it be developed for people to travel in the future? Why didn't you say it? Nishide asked. Ni Yunqing coughed lightly, looked away, and said, it's what happened in the past 2 days, and everyone around knows it. Let's go down the mountain in a while. Nishide is not an unreasonable person. Since this is a private venue, he will not stay for long, but it does not prevent him from watching the plants and trees here with his eyes. There was not a single tree on the other mountain, but many saplings were planted. Monk Zhang couldn't figure it out. Why did you cut down this beautiful tree? Nishide looked at Ni Yunqing in confusion, thinking that his grandson must know the whole story. Ni Yunqing really knows, after all, he is a person who has watched the live broadcast for 2 days, and he is also a little puzzled by Daowin's insistence on planting fruit saplings, but this mountain is indeed relatively barren, and there is nothing wrong with replanting, otherwise, the mountains and forests will be barren. It is a pity that it cannot create economic benefits. I heard that I want to plant some fruit trees. There are few trees here. It would be better to plant fruit trees. Nai Yunqing commented impartially. Nai Shide shook his head, and the young man thought about it. The soil system here is not suitable for planting fruit trees. Nai Shide, who likes to play with flowers and plants in his free time, can tell at a glance that the land here is not suitable for growing things. If he really plants it, he is afraid that the fruit trees in the back will not grow well, and the fruit will not taste good. Of course, he didn't know that Li Qiaoqiao still held the big weapon of the farming system in his hands. Nai Yunqing frowned lightly, and then slowly let go. Yes, no matter what, this is his land, isn't it up to her to decide how to plant love? What does it have to do with these bystanders? Okay, Grandpa, let's go this way, I'll support you. Just as Nai Yunqing was about to step forward, Nai Shide glared at him, so moody that Nai Yunqing couldn't figure out what was going on. The next time you see the owner here, remember to remind him, otherwise it would be a pity that you spent a lot of time planting trees and finally withered. Do you hear me? I need to remind you. Nai Shide repeated. Okay, Grandpa, I'll ask her for advice. In the live broadcast. Seeing Nai Yunqing's guarantee, Nai Shide was relieved. His grandson definitely had a target in mind, and he would do what he said. Li Qiaoqiao didn't know at all that there were a few more tourists on the mountain behind his house and left. Even if he knew, he wouldn't say anything. Although the top of the mountain is hers, there is no rule that people cannot go up there. There are many children in the village who go there to play. She also considers whether to fence off the top of the mountain first. In other words, if something unexpected happened on the top of the mountain, and the owner was held accountable for not taking precautions, would she be wronged? Therefore, it is better to be a villain first than a gentleman, and the lakeside has to take safety measures before it can be opened for people to go in and play. Li Qiaoqiao hadn't designed the development plan for Huishan yet, and received a call from Qi Guanjiao the next day, telling her about Pan Rong. I have paid the fine today and left with his wife. However, according to what they say, they seem to want to sue you. Qi Guanjiao said with disgust. What are you suing me? Li Qiaoqiao still raised her eyebrows curiously and asked, she didn't seem to have done anything, right? Qi Guanjiao also gritted his teeth in his tone. They said that your house must be hidden and poisoned, otherwise how could they stand at the door and lose their eyesight? Li Qiaoqiao couldn't help but groan, shook his head and said, thank you Officer Qi, let them do whatever they want, I believe the law will give me justice. Li Qiaoqiao has never touched them with a finger. Shouldn't they have a problem with themselves? She wanted to do bad things in the middle of the night, and now she still wants to sue her, so sue her, she'll wait. Qi Guanjiao seemed to want to say something, but he didn't say anything in the end. He only asked her to pay more attention to safety recently, and to be careful when going in and out. It's best to find a friend to live with at home. Obviously, even Qi Guanjiao could guess that this guy jumped the wall in a hurry, and he could do anything. Li Qiaoqiao hung up the phone and discussed with the system directly. System, you see, I am also your host, you can't complete the task even if you die, can't you? Just take out anything else, hide it, wait it's too late when the bad guys come. The farming system slowly opened the mall page in front of her. The mall page had already appeared after Li Qiaoqiao had been promoted to level 10 last time, and there were all kinds of things. However, there are high prices marked on each item, all of which are exchanged with Li Qiaoqiao's points, but the method of obtaining points, she only knows to complete the tasks assigned by the system, but each task takes a long time to complete. Finish. In this way, after 100 years, she probably won't be able to afford the above items. There must be some rules here, but the system didn't say it directly, and she has to figure it out every day. Is there something I need here? Lee Kuo doubted. Since the shepherd dog and anti-wolf fluid were exchanged last time, after refreshing again, almost all of the items that can be exchanged in the system mall are crops, but there are no other things she needs. This time, she found that the system had refreshed some things, with a zoom-in button for searching, and the mall was divided into several areas according to practical types. For example, crops are a category, and shepherd dogs are a category of home protection. There are more shadows of black technology when you click on it, such as exchanging home protection shields, which can automatically activate to protect the home. You need to pay 100 points per day to avoid it. All dangerous things, including endangering personal safety and crops, are specially written on it, and AI robot guards are given as a package, but relatively, the price of this package is the same as the sky-high price in Lee Kuo's view, requiring 100,000 points. Lee Kuo, the system might as well grab it. So much, have you considered that the points in her account are only in the early double digits? However, if she has enough points, she really doesn't mind buying one. After all, one person manages such a large place. In the future, the magic of the crops will probably need to be kept secret. The AI robot given by the system is very good, but it is a humanoid or a robot. Look like? The farming system thoughtfully said, the appearance can be changed according to the host's wishes. The template is as follows. The farming system showed the handsome Nai Yunking directly in front of Lee Kuo, and he opened his lips and called to her, Master. Lee Kuo's ears burst into red instantly, and he glared at Mo Suyu's real farming system, and said, Shut it off for me. Who told you, you did this? Do you know that this is infringing on other people's portrait rights? General appearance it's fine, I need someone to protect my safety, not for you to create a safety hazard. The farming system quickly took away the obviously most beloved image of the host, and released another pair of ordinary-looking men and women in uniforms who looked at her seriously and saluted her. Yes, it's very good. I need it now, but I don't have money, no, I don't have points. Lee Kuo rubbed her forehead and said, although the things are good, but the system doesn't give them away, so she can only look at them greedily. The host can have the right to credit once, but correspondingly, interest must be paid. Lee Kuo immediately nodded in agreement before the farming system finished the rules. Nonsense, anyway, the farming system is bound, is there a difference? Isn't the negative number just urging you to earn points? Buy it. Lee Kuo waved his hand, and his whole body was filled with a golden aura of local tyrants. As long as the immediate problems are solved first, the future debt problems will be discussed later. The farming system seemed to have been shaken by Lee Kuo, and in the end, he felt very reluctant to give Lee Kuo credit for a home protection system, as long as all the land under Lee Kuo's name was included. In a place invisible to others, the sky seems to have opened up a huge transparent film to protect the land. Two intelligent Ace also stood in front of Lee Kuo. People are no different. Did you get their ID card? Lee Kuo asked concerned. She didn't even have time to protest against the problem of cutting corners in the farming system, so she sent two intelligent robots. What if there were not enough? That's 1,000,000 points. Don't worry about the host, the farming system will serve you wholeheartedly. All intelligent Ace will have a reasonable identity, and you can get specific information by clicking on the avatar. The farming system said seriously. Lee Kuo raised his eyebrows and clicked on the profile of the male AI in front of him. His name was Gao Zhengping, he was a retired security officer, he was 30 years old, and he was from the southern county of XXX. Yo, the fakes are quite realistic, and the place names are detailed. Lee Kuo couldn't help but asked curiously, then what if someone really goes to investigate and finds that there is no such person? The identities given by the system are all real identities, but the owner of the identities has been found to be missing or dead for a long time after searching, said the farming system. Li Qiaoqiao nodded before she felt relieved. She was afraid that if these robots were used too much in the future and they were found hiding a bunch of black people, it would be a lot of fun. Then you still have Zongtian's robots, right? Do you want to consider selling two to me? You see, such a large land was developed by me. The progress is too slow, isn't it? Li Qiaoqiao said persuasively. I'm sorry, host, please repay all the debts before you can buy the product. The gold coins given by the upgrade will be repaid first, and the gifts will not be taken back. The farming system said ruthlessly. Li Qiaoqiao, you said it earlier. Then I will pay for it a few days later, so now I am not only poor and in debt, but also the points will be cleared every day, so I can only farm manually by myself? The author has something to say. Good night. These days, it will be updated every night at 9 o'clock.